field for Wake Forest. He's trying to go up top. Going down the middle. Has a man. Pass is caught there. A.T. Perry breaks a tackle. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Keeper escapes, makes a cut. Daniels in space. Who score?
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Trying for the end zone is May. Has a man. Did he catch it? What a catch in the corner by Paysour.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Play action. McCarthy. All day to throw. Finds a crosser. On time for the first down.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Plenty of time for Stroud. Directing receivers, flips it to the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! Marvin Harrison Jr.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Bowers after the play fake, showing his great athleticism. He's going to take it all the way for his third touchdown of the game.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on a Wednesday. It's the first week of the Texas high school football season. It's the first week of the college football season, although a very small package of games. There's always something when it comes to realignment, plus names like Reggie Bush, Noah Shannon, Brandon Robinson, the Big 12 with a sports wagering monitoring company. Virginia Tech is named a quarterback, and then Notre Dame's Jack Swarbrick has something to say about Cal Stanford, Caleb Williams with Fanville, and North Carolina's coach is taking back a little bit of what he meant when he made the comment about Stanford and Cal. Good afternoon, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak, and this is 365 Sports. Let's go ahead, Paul. I walked in the door. You brought this up. And here we go with Pete Thamel. Sources, the potential additions of Cal and Stanford and SMU to the ACC are again under serious consideration by the ACC. A small group of presidents met Wednesday morning to discuss financial models that would come with the additions.
Yes, so this is clearly the group that is pro. They've got to get one of NC State, North Carolina, Florida State, or Clemson to flip. And according to Pete Thamel, those models are expected to include significant financial concessions from the schools that will be added. More meetings are expected this week. They just need the one vote. A realistic timeline for a decision of about 1 week, and there's expected to be a pool of money created from these additions. The ACC presidents are discussing how that money would be split. The mechanics of that are still to be worked out, including a performance pool for success initiatives, and the concessions expected from SMU include a willingness to take no broadcast media revenue for the first 7 years they're in the league. Stanford and Cal would both receive the same share, which will both be reduced, but different in form than SMU's. So that is the proposal.
All right,
they're
so
working
they
on
already
now.
have the equal, or they already have the performance base. They've discussed that before, so that's not new. How much money pro rata does a group of 5 school like SMU bring to the table? Is it the same as the Pac-12 with both the Power 5 schools in Cal and Stanford?
I would assume not, because that wasn't the deal that ESPN made with anybody else. So I don't think they would give whatever the, and don't get me to lying about what their base number is, because I think they're third technically, but, their distribution, whatever is going to come out in the next couple of years with everybody. So I did. But are they going to cave to Clemson and Florida State in particular, in North Carolina, and say, okay, well, you guys can have the lion's share of this money, and then the rest will go in a pool for us? And does that even make them close to happy at all? And do you even want to do that if they're just going to continue to hold you hostage?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see that this is gaining some momentum, because it was very quiet. I mean, there were a little chirping here and there, but nothing of great significance because it sounded like, if anything, it was something that didn't have a lot of legs to it necessarily. But now it does seem like it's picking back up, and there is, a timeline and an actual decision that could be, coming in the next few days, according to Thamel, within the week, as he said. So this SMU thing is just crazy to me. I mean, to give up 7 years of the money you'd otherwise be earning because you are so intent and in some ways desperate. I mean, let's call it what it is. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in this case, because if you land a spot in the ACC, you won. If it's not going to affect you financially all that much, which clearly they feel like they can go 7 years and be fine. And, it's not like $0 would be coming in. It's just, not going to be significantly going up. You're paying out. But, they also realize what that spot means, and that's invaluable compared to the TV money or, to the spot that they're currently in. So I totally get the desperation, but, man, that is one of the great desperate ploys of all time to try to get into one of the big conferences. And you know what? It might work out for them in the end. And if it does, then that's all that matters. But that's a long time without, wanting to take in that money. And they've obviously given it a lot of thought. They've really tried for quite a while to find themselves this spot. So they're knocking on the door. I mean, that's what they're at least doing. And then for Cal Stanford, I mean, obviously they're probably more of the national story because they're larger schools and, that's been kind of the focal point since the Pac-12, started to hemorrhage. They need to land somewhere, and as you're going to point out with Jack Swarbrick, I mean, we're trying to help Cal and Stanford find a landing spot. So that's a project that, more hands than even their own are involved in, apparently. It's just natural that they're going to find a spot. The ACC seems to be the only thing that really makes sense. Besides that, it's create your own thing or try to recreate the Pac to some extent. So I get why this is one of the angles. I still don't quite love it from an ACC point of view. I mean, I guess there's the difference between the conference and the fans. Like, from the conference standpoint, you've got to do whatever you possibly can to make Florida State and the like happy. And if that's just a couple $1 million extra by bringing in these schools, and that's enough to get Florida State to quiet down for a while, or Clemson, then that's a win. So that makes sense. From a fan standpoint, don't love it. I mean, I don't know how you're excited about that if you're, a Virginia fan or a North Carolina fan about the potential. Maybe you are. Maybe the West Coast opening up is a grand old idea to some people. But, yeah, there's still a lot of moving parts here, clearly. But the skeleton frame is in place, and you can see how it could kind of work. And if it does, that'd be quite the sequence of events by the ACC and these Pac-12 leftovers.
I can see what SMU wants to do. They want to be a part of a Power 5 conference. They're willing, if in fact that's the number, and Pete Thamel's really good at what he does, but to not take any revenue for 7 years when the revenue in the ACC is in the upper 20s, lower 30s, similar to the Big 12. I know there's a give or take $5 million. It goes up as it goes on, and for them, for a long, long time. And I know that they have people who can write pretty much every check they want, but I get why they're wanting to do this, but that is still giving up what could be $150 million or $200 million over a period of 7 years. Cal Stanford, they have huge money. They'll be, let's say they get what the American schools got plus a little bit more, which was 18 or 19 million this year.
Well, I mean, they were going to be fine with the Pac-12 deal. Yeah, so I mean, like they were like scraping for every dollar like they had to make and get the greediest deal possible. So yeah, I don't think that is that big a deal to them either. And SMU, like I said, they've clearly been they're willing to do whatever it takes to get into a quote unquote power conference. I mean, that's very clear. So yeah, you can see it from all three angles.
So why would, and I know the answer, but let's discuss it. Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, NC State have said no. Is this enough to make any one of them change their mind? And secondly, is there really that much money being added with the pro rata of Cal and Stanford? I've asked that to spread out over what? Just 4 schools or 8 schools or everybody, or some get more?
Well, that's what they're talking about.
And on top of that, why would the other schools in the ACC agree to this?
Yeah. Is
that a fair question?
Yeah. So if you're talking about, let's just put the number at a $30 million gap, which is what you heard, $30 to $35 million gap. If you go back and listen to the Board of Trustees meeting at Florida State, that's kind of the number that kept popping up. So $30 to $35 million gap when you wake up in the morning those days. Okay, so all right, so if every school is supposed to get $30 million a year, and you add some new schools, and then you take money away from them, and then SMU's is a little lower for those 7 years. Let's say SMU gets $20 million. So you would have to take all of that money every year and just give it to the schools that voted no, which then, other than keeping your conference alive, what does that do for Wake Forest and BC and Syracuse and Pitt and the others? Nothing. I mean, other than, again, keeping the conference alive, and you can still make the TV money that you're making now consistently without that getting separated. But how much of that money is enough to close the gap to keep Florida State, who's loud and angry, quiet and content, and Clemson, who's quiet and angry about it, content?
From Alex Rea, Cal fan, ACC needs money, and they are trapped in the grant of rights for several more years. They can only expand at this particular point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense when you look at it. It just doesn't make the greatest sense in the world, like every part of it, but it does make sense. I mean, it makes sense from SMU's standpoint. It makes sense from Cal and Stanford's standpoint. It makes sense from the ACC standpoint because they also can't just go by what Florida State dictates all the time.
Yeah.
They can't just sit on their hands and go, well, Florida State's going to be unhappy. We can't do that. It's like, no, you got to still do what's best for you. And look, if these teams are planning on leaving anyways, you might as well have some new teams that you brought into the fold to offset that, right? So, yeah, it's a situation where you're kind of, maybe damned if you do, damned if you don't in some ways, but it does make sense because, hey, if we're not going to make them happy now, and we're not going to make them happy 5 years from now, might as well do what's going to better us overall in the long run, and that's going to have Dallas and the Bay Area and these pro-rata teams coming in and at least adding something to the pie. So, it's still a situation that there's a lot of details that need to be ironed out. I think that's pretty clear from Thamel's, reporting is these are discussions. There's still, a lot of the T's and I's that need to be crossed and dotted and, a lot of other things figured out. But on the surface, even though it's a mutant marriage in some ways because the idea of Duke going to play Stanford in basketball during the weeknight is probably not one that, Blue Devils fans or vice versa are really in love with. But, at least initially it'd be fun. Hey, we're going to play Cameron Indoor for, you can kind of deal with it initially if it means that you're surviving. And that's what all these teams our programs are looking to do. And in this scenario, SMU's better. Cal and Stanford are better. The ACC's better. They're making more money. And the only issue you really have is, yes, there's more headaches with travel, but you can figure that out after the fact because all you're trying to do right now is just stabilize everything. And then that leaves really the thing that's already going on anyways, which is Florida State or Clemson or, whoever else deciding to complain about their situation, which, again, those are some of the details to be worked out. Maybe Florida State isn't barking as loud when you ensure that, hey, we're going to give you this much extra money from this, and also you feel pretty confident in your football team or your basketball team. If you guys are good, you also get this extra money. And that all adds up to this, and this is why you're better off. So, it doesn't answer, though, how you close a $35-40 million gap. That's the thing that nobody has an answer to, but it's better than nothing.
Kurt Green, SMU doesn't need the revenue. They only lose $7 to $8 million a year, the current revenue they have. And they'll make that back and then some with ticket revenue, NIL boost, donations, applications, visibility, and also merchandise. The SMU enrollment is not going to go up too much. They kind of like it where it is. Doesn't mean it won't go up. How much that adds to it. NIL, I can see that. Donations for facilities, I can see that. They've done a lot of that already. But as far as ticket revenue, it's a really beautiful stadium. I've been in it before. But it's not going to add another 25 or 30,000 people into the seats. If it happens for SMU, I know some, oh my God, I'm happy for them if it works. And then for anyone else who can find the life raft, whether it's the ACC or elsewhere, whether it's Cal or Stanford, if it works. And for basketball, men's basketball, in football, those are charter flights anyway. It's the Olympic sports, of course, and you wonder how much that's going to be tied in to the ACC.
I do think that the ACC might be the one who has to trailblaze in, hey, let's do that stuff regionally.
Yeah, no, they might. And everyone else might eventually do that anyway, so why not?
Although this does, you read all these tweets and then all this news, and it does maybe put some context as to why the North Carolina soccer coach backed off with some of the stuff he said.
Yeah.
We're going to read that in just a second. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, and Swarbrick had interesting comments, too, that were kind of weird, really, when I was listening back to him, because it's like the guy is one of the main figures in what all's going on and talking about how it's kind of weird the way college officials are, bemoaning what's going on, and yet they're all directly involved in what's going on and helped create what's going on. But I wanted to say on SMU, like they're never going to want to get too big, but certainly I would imagine they'd see a bump in enrollment just from the East Coast and also the extra added potential West Coast wise. I mean, I think they already get some California kids, Arizona and such, but certainly having a couple Bay Area schools could tick that up, but they're going to want to remain SMU and never want to explode, enrollment-wise. But, yeah, they'd see an uptick in probably everything. And so, they've made their position clear, and this looks like it is their chance of all chances. I don't know about Cal Stanford, what other pivots they may have, but for SMU, this certainly does feel like it's your last opportunity to get daylight. And I just think when it comes to the four schools, I mean, what does that do to their relationship with each other, UNC, NC State, Clemson, and Florida State, if one of them is the defector? And if they're not really in with this idea, and yet one of them balks and then crosses over to the picket line, so to speak, and allows this, you just wonder what kind of damage that would do. And that would be obviously a next chapter here, because first they need to welcome in these schools, but it would take one of those four, at least one, backing off. And they seem pretty gridlocked right now. They seem pretty tight, but just one, I'm sure there's a lot of whispering in ears right now.
My assumption would be that, and this is not, I don't know the politics of NC State and North Carolina, but I would assume that right now they're doing the Arizona State thing where they're in lockstep together until they don't have to be, which would come for North Carolina before it came for North Carolina State. See, that's the thing, is North Carolina can have North Carolina State and they can be buddy and hugging each other. But the minute that phone rings and, hello, this is North Carolina. Hi, this is a bigger conference with more money. They're like, hey, hold on. We got to make a quick call to NC State and tell them we're busy on Saturday.
Let's get the quote from Swarbrick that we have alluded to. This is from, he was in Dublin, Ireland with the Dan Patrick show for the game against Navy. It's a complete disaster what's happened to college athletics. Everybody in the industry has to take responsibility, and I'm not excluding myself from that. I think decision-making lost its way in terms of focus on the student-athlete and what's primarily best for them. You can't have two of the great academic institutions in the world not have a place to play. We're working on a solution. There's still consideration of the ACC as a home for those schools, and on the Pac-12 dying, it's looking that way more and more every day, yes.
Yeah, I mean, reading it comes across differently than it sounded. It was a lot more somber when he was talking, and he had like some kind of short answers that were it made it like very dramatic, sort of, which was it was kind of interesting the way it came across, like it was almost a funeral or something. But maybe it was a funeral for the Pac-12, because he thinks that they will, in fact, with Notre Dame's influence to at least some extent, along with others, obviously, they'll pull off this deal that would effectively, it would kill the Pac. I mean, that would be the last fatal blow for the Pac-12, and would leave, obviously, the Washington States and Oregon States to go and try to find what they could, which, there's a lot of options that have been laid out for them as well, including the American and others. So, I mean, Notre Dame's in their corner. Most of the teams in the conference are obviously in that corner, because there's only four that are, not
2/3 of them say they want it.
Yeah, not allowing it to happen. So there certainly seems to be some momentum in that direction. Now, as we know, when you put out in the media, there can be reasons why you do that. You try to put it out there to sway certain things. You try to, dictate the narrative. But yeah, I'm going to be fascinated to see if one of these four decides, you know what, it is better for us. Or is there a concession made, or what kind of concessions are made or guarantees made to get that, further down the line?
Paul, you mentioned that the four schools in NC State. Who among the conference, and I know that they would have a success rate distribution of whatever money, besides the TV deal, and that could be what they get now, and then there's that extra layer that they're getting with pro rata. Who's going to get that? Is that going to be based on just performance? And if you're the rest of the conference, is that enough to give up, knowing that you're probably going to always be in a pecking order, like Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh's not a bad football program.
Well, they won the conference.
Yeah.
They won the conference just 2 years ago.
And I know Miami's down, and Miami's a private school, and they're down. But it will be interesting. And by the way, if it works out, that's just two more schools that are saved from being in the ocean without a life raft, if that works out for Cal Stanford plus SMU. Here's a question from TJ. I don't get it. If SMU does not want the money for 7 years, whatever the number is going to be, they have never won the AAC in the conference. Why do they want to be in a Power 5 conference? Prestige, donors get a little more happy with their wallets and their checkbooks and stuff like that, and they feel like that gives them a chance to recruit better in what is a great state and area to recruit in Dallas and Fort Worth.
I mean this with the utmost respect towards the American schools. Would you rather play Tulsa or Florida State? I mean, I think that's as simple as I can make it. Would you rather play, I know Tulane's got a lot of respect, especially here over the last year because of what their football program did. But, let's just take it back to when Tulane's not necessarily a hot team and one that we think, all that highly of. And even still, like, compare that to playing Clemson, right? I mean, there you go. There's one part of it. There's also the extra money that you would get from, extra ticket sales and all that goes on within the the campus and campus life and all of that, extra enrollment. There's a lot of different avenues where you're better off, including potentially your path to a playoff, your respect level, your prestige level, like you said, academics wise. I know we goof on that because there were some goofy comments made about that in the lead up to the Big 12 Pac-12 event. But in this case, if you are an SMU and you're looking around, you're looking at Duke and Virginia and schools like that, that is appealing to you. That is very much appealing to somebody who does care about academics. So academics, money, even though they're not getting the TV money, but money will come in different ways, including, if you're playing Florida State and Clemson, all of a sudden that big booster out in Highland Park who's already given you $1 million maybe wants to give you $3 million because now you're competing with a different set of schools with a different set of rules for different types of players. So there's a number of ways where it makes more sense for SMU, even without the TV money. And, just the fact that they could float 7 years without even receiving that and be okay, that should tell you everything about kind of their position right now.
Yeah. All right. There's a lot of moving parts. Right now, there's the story from Pete Thamel. There's a lot of discussion. What does it mean? Obviously, for Cal, Stanford, and also SMU, it would mean that they're on dry land, that they are a part of a Power 5, no matter what will be the breakdown financially and how many years, and what does it mean for those in the conference? Who gets it? And is it just based on the new money? If it's there, would it be based on just the success rate, wins and losses, et cetera?
Here's what I would say. Why would SMU want to be in the ACC and make no money? Why does Jeff Bezos have a rocket ship? I mean, it's to get more noticed. Yes, they have the money, and if they have the money to forego it for 7 years and roll the dice and help the league out in that thing, then look, that's, there are stupider things that people spend their money on, I guess, and so if they want to spend their money that way, then so be it if they feel they can withstand it.
There's a lot of actors and people with a lot of money. They don't have to be actors, and even athletes. They have multiple mansions because they can. And so why not, if you can buy it and you have the ability to do it and you don't put yourself in a bad position, why not have a lot of nice bells, toys, and whistles?
Yeah, but they're not really buying anything here, though, guys. That's the difference. Is like you're talking about things that you buy. They're not really buying anything. They're foregoing
Aren't
money.
they buying into a conference?
They're not really. I mean, not technically, no. They're not spending money. They're losing money to get into a conference. So they're not buying. They're doing the exact opposite. They're gushing money or giving away money.
If you're buying into a conference, you're losing money. And they're losing money. That was my analogy.
Yeah, I'm just saying they're not giving $100 million. Technically, they are. They're just not ever receiving it to begin with. They're not getting it to start off with. They're just never seeing it. But yeah, I mean, regardless of how you want to break it down, SMU is doing whatever desperate measure they can, and I don't mean that as a negative, buying their way in or talking their way in, however you want to phrase it. They're doing whatever they can to get that last seat on whatever, last boat is remaining in people's eyes when it comes to college athletics. So, I mean, we mentioned several ways in which it makes sense for them, even without the tens of millions of dollars that they, would have if they were a regular member of the conference. But they get all the other things, the bells and whistles, as you put it. They get all those as a member, and that offsets any monetary loss, so to speak.
A little bit later on, Reggie Bush has filed a lawsuit on against the NCAA. There's an Iowa player who's out for the year with suspension of gambling. Georgia running back injured. We'll have some of those stories a little bit later on. Lewis Doe, ACC could come close the gap by reaching naturally untapped market, like play games and get ESPN to experiment with Spanish language. Oh, wait, the Big 12 and Brett Yormark jumped on that log first. I would like to know what the pro rata is, and if it's the same as what the ACC schools are getting now. And then, Paul, let's say you get 3 or 2 times that number. And then whatever SMU would bring to the table, let's just say, what are they making? 6 to 8 million in the American, whatever that number would be. Or maybe they would get, like Brigham Young, Cincinnati, Houston, and also UCF, $18, $19 million the next couple of years each year. You add all that together, and you're looking at $75 to $80, $90 million. Distribute that over a certain amount of schools based on wins and losses. I would think if you are 8 schools who are in the boat here that want this to happen, why would you then take less money based on success rate and not get the same share as the 4 schools or one of the schools you need to flip in the 4 schools overall, that you get the same as they do?
Yeah, that's the question that's going to have to be answered for me is, outside of saving the conference, right? Because that's what it would, if you have to forego all this money to give to a few people and you only get a little bit of it, and a little bit of it goes in the success pot, which for some schools, you're probably only going to see once every 15 to 20 years. If you say the conference stayed that long. You know, Boston College may one day haul off and win the ACC in football, but they're not going to do it 7 times like in a row Clemson has. So is it worth it to even do that to save the conference? Well, if you're Boston College, maybe. But if you're somebody else that's maybe like a little bit bigger school than them, maybe not. I don't know how you would all agree to that, just because if you're just going to decide to do unequal revenue sharing across the board, and
they've already done that.
They already agree. There's only 4 that haven't.
But shove all that money to those 4, then
but they already
what's the
have
benefit?
come up with a plan for what they're getting now, despite whether Cal, Stanford, SMU join. Haven't they already pretty much agreed that they're going to look at that kind of, maybe the distribution will be more focused on wins and losses, give or take whatever that is?
Well, I'm talking about both of these things together, the success pot and the new money from the 3 schools coming in. If you're just going to decide to give all that money to those 3, I don't know how much that helps you long term. And if you're just, if it's even enough to keep them from going the minute they would get an offer that is the money that they really want, then what did you do? I guess you could renegotiate after that, but your conference may not exist after that, and things may have changed.
Well, that's why it doesn't really make that much sense. Like, I mean, it makes sense for all involved, like we broke it down earlier, but then, like, from a 10,000-foot view, it's just like, okay, I guess. I mean, that's kind of how it feels like. It does feel like you're just delaying the inevitable because, again, when you start to add up all the money and keep talking about pro rata, and there is for those 2 PAC schools, like they are getting extra money there, but you know, how does $60 million get divvied up? And then, yeah, like you said, and I know they've talked about performance, you know, revenue sharing, but they haven't solidified anything to our knowledge. Talking's one thing, actually doing it's another. So yeah, they've talked about it. They've loosely agreed to explore it, but you know, since agreeing to that, what's happened since then? Nothing has happened since then. So,
that's because the Florida State may have overshadowed all of that.
They definitely did, but I mean, that still doesn't change the fact that nothing's changed there. Like, yeah, they're going to look at it, but I mean, what is looking at it? Looking at it's not everybody going, all right, we're all in together and we are ready to sign this document and we have agreed to. I mean, there's a lot of details that need to be figured out. So, yeah, I mean, there are schools that are going to be cooperative, and there are clearly 4 that are the uncooperative ones at this moment. And can you sway one of those schools to get what you ultimately want? From the West Coast and SMU and conference perspective, or, you know, are those 4 and the inevitable, they're leaving anyways, what's the point? You know, that's what the balancing act is going to be for I guess all those involved to, you know, to figure out. But looking out for your best long-term interest, I think the majority of schools have spoken, and they feel that the best thing for the ACC is to have these 3 schools and markets brought into the fold.
If you hear that the ACC is going to have a vote, I would say 99% that means they're going to pass it. I think that they don't want to go to another vote and then not pass it, and then they go down that hamster wheel yet again. If you see that they're going to vote, that there's an actual vote coming, I would think that means they flip somebody, or maybe more than somebody. Roger Wallace does color analyst with Craig Way for University of Texas football. Great friend of mine. Knows Craig really well, too. Broadcaster, knows Paul. He's going to join us at 3:30 on UT. Former Oklahoma State star receiver Rashawn Woods is the coach now at Tyler High School, old John Tyler High School, and a couple of notes from him on Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy. We'll have Ricky Thompson, Brandon Helwig on UCF, Chad Brendel on Cincinnati, and also John Machota on the Cowboys in the NFL. Thank you for being a part of the chat room, and for those watching us and our great sponsors, back with Roger Wallace. This is 365 Sports. This week's specials all the way through close of business on Saturday for Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Chicken leg quarters for just 70 cents a pound. Boneless pork chops for $2.05 a pound. Tri-tip $4.99 a pound. Top sirloin steak for $6.99 a pound. When I was much younger, my dad, when he cooked steaks with 4 boys, and 7 of us overall, it was really hard for him to have ribeyes or bacon-wrapped fillets, and especially not tomahawk ribeyes. It was really kind of, at that time, it just cost so much. So he had a way of cooking a sirloin steak, and it was absolutely delicious. And being a military guy, he would have his watch. He would say 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever. Flip them, and they would be great. Sirloin steak, top sirloin, also is good for stir fry and much more. It's $6.99 a pound. And all fresh shrimp, 10% off on all fresh shrimp. German sausage, $2.99 a pound. Brian Bauer, also a great place for tailgating, charcoal, pellet fuel, and marinades and seasonings, tri-tips and briskets, and more. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
During the Make This the Summer event, save big on a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $3,500 plus 2.9% for 72 months. Or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with employee pricing for all plus 1.9% for 72 months. And an extra $1,000 rebate. Or if that's not enough, get a 2023 Jeep Compass 10% off MSRP. That's right, and no payments for 90 days on all offers. Find the Jeep that fits you at Allen Samuels in Waco.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel & Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel & Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel & Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Former Oklahoma State wide receiver Rashawn Woods around the corner, now a head coach at Tyler High School. We'll have him. But Roger Wallace, color analyst for UT football and does much more for UT and the radio network, joins us with Craig and David and also Paul Catalina. Roger, thanks for your time. It's an off day for you, as you mentioned earlier, getting into that football season mode. So when you see what UT is doing, they're obviously – a lot of people think very highly of them. We know we've been down this road before, but why this year, in your opinion, being around the team, is this year different than previous hype?
Yeah. Hey, David, good to be on. Thanks for having me. That's a good question because you're right. And I think everybody is optimistic. And then they remember that, as you said, they have been down this road several times, just won 10-win season since they played for the national title. And Alabama won their first in this Nick Saban era. But I think a few things. You've got now a semi-veteran quarterback, second year with Quinn Ewers. You've got a stacked wide receiver room. But maybe more importantly, Dave, you got your entire offensive line back, including preseason All-American on the left side. So I think that's the reason on the offensive side. Defense, they held on to Jalen Ford, one of the top tacklers in the nation. They like what they have up front. So I think they just think the talent level under Sark has been elevated, and now these guys are a little bit older, and so I think they think they have the ingredients. But again, none of this matters until they go out on Saturdays. Probably that second Saturday will tell us a lot. Even if they lose in Tuscaloosa, it might tell us a lot.
Roger, a lot of this, over the years has been less about talent. I mean, a lot of it's about talent development and the fact that it just didn't ever hit its peak. But a lot of it's been about locker room culture and the culture of the program and kind of getting some of the entitlement that the post-2009 crew came in with, where nobody had won anything, but they kind of felt like they were riding on the waves of all the guys who had. Do you feel that has changed being around the program, that Sark has been able to really point them in a direction of having to earn being a Longhorn great as opposed to just saying, I'm a part of the Longhorn football team. Look at all the great things that happened a long time ago.
They would like to think so, but I think it's all about this program has been through such a interesting ride for the last decade and a half that I don't think anybody really is too concerned about what happens between Sunday and Friday as far as how that, the culture and this and that compared to what did they do on Saturday. I get that those are the days that it happens. In the summer it happens, but every camp that come in and say all the right things, they've never once said, I feel like this is really going to be a struggle this year. So all the right things are being said. For the most part, recruiting's been good. It dipped a little with Tom Herman at the end and with Charlie Strong. So to me, it's about putting the pieces of the puzzle together. 2 years ago, it was about losing leads with Sark, and then last year it was about 2 huge missed opportunities in their game against TCU and their game against Oklahoma State. They win one of those, both they led, and they're playing for a Big 12 championship. So now it's kind of all right. That next step, and it's the biggest cliche there is can they do it for a full game?
Roger, there's no quarterback controversy, but just in talking with folks, in and out of athletics and around Austin, do you hear more about Arch Manning or about Quinn Ewers?
Well, you hear more about Quinn Ewers, and that's the interesting thing to me, guys, is, you look at the Heisman odds, and I get it. Odds are based on gambling, and Texas is going to attract a lot of attention. But, to put Quinn Ewers as the 2 or the 3 or the 4th highest odds to win the Heisman, that's a pretty big leap from last year, but it kind of goes with the territory. So I think Sark is pretty confident that there is no issue at quarterback as long as he's healthy. And then, you got the Arch Manning factor, and I think they want to play him. I think they want to play Malik Murphy in the right circumstance. And then as soon as someone at Texas does something outstanding, the tidal wave is formed. And, the old offensive coordinator, Greg Davis, for so many years under Mac Brown, who as maligned as he was, offense did average over 50 points a game in 2005. But he would talk about those early season statue moments. A guy would have a great game in the non-conference, and they're ready to put up a statue for him. So, it's just a different world here with every little thing that happens, and it turns into a big thing.
Roger, they do lose Bijan, who was special. They do have a bunch of players, and they don't have running backs in the roster that aren't probably highly recruited 4 stars, 5 stars, whatever stars, talent with, Baxter's a freshman, Brooks and Blue back, Red, Robinson, and much more. Do they go by running back at committee, or is Jonathan Brooks going to get a big dose early and see how he handles it? Good question, David. I think Jonathan Brooks will get a bulk of the carries early, but I don't think Sark's going to have a problem rotating. Keelan Robinson is kind of that lightning element, and he brings a little bit different to the table. Baxter's big; he's a big freshman, and I think they like him. And you mentioned Jaden Blue; he's kind of that other guy, and maybe the number 4 back who's really talented. But I think it will be a little bit by committee. But I think they figure there's going to be enough touches to go around. They've had so many occasions the last couple of years where, it looked like they had an embarrassment of riches, and all of a sudden they get a little banged up, and, they're not so deep. So, I'm sure if everything works out perfect, I would think Jonathan Brooks, at least at the start of the year, he'll have to earn not getting more touches. If he struggles, then maybe that won't happen. But I think starting out, that's the guy they expect to be, he's not going to carry like Bijan or even like Roschon, but certainly I would say 12 to 15 carries a game.
Roger, do you think that this team is mature enough not to put a lot of eggs in that Alabama basket early on to where, honestly, if they lose in a good game, it probably doesn't even matter for their long-term college football playoff goals if they go ahead and win the conference on their way out?
Yeah, that's true. And last year they went up in the rankings after the loss. To Alabama, some unusual circumstances and the fact that, Ewers got hurt and he had just completed a big ball over the top to Worthy, and then they don't get in the end zone and he gets blasted on that pass play. But I guess I would say depending on what it looks like in Tuscaloosa. But sure, I think they've got plenty ahead of them on the schedule with enough quality teams in the Big 12 that if they get on a roll, then they're in good shape. Maybe not enough to get into the playoffs, depending on how things fall. But certainly, this team is not thinking playoff, guys. They want to leave the Big 12 at least with a chance to do what they did in their first year of the Big 12, and at least have a chance to play for a championship. Only done it once again since 2009.
So last year was just kind of a weird year, it felt like, for Xavier Worthy, and they are loaded, pretty much like you said, everywhere, but especially at wide receiver with all they brought back. Isaiah Nayor's healthy. A.D. Mitchell, I've seen tons of him all over my timeline, and people, jacked about him transferring in. But what's kind of been the theme around Xavier Worthy and just what was a very, up and down year for him a year ago?
Yeah, I think they expect him to be that guy, but you're right. They're loaded. And it's funny, you went down the line, and I've been guilty of this too. No one mentioned Jordan Whittington. And, he's one of the toughest and when he's healthy, most reliable receivers. That guy that, he'll break a tackle. He'll do the dirty work. He'll block as well as you'll see from the wide receiver. But I think Worthy's a guy they hope can be a 65 to 75 catch guy. One thing they didn't do, guys, and I referenced Alabama, they didn't get over the top almost at all last year, minus that play in the Alabama game, and that led to the injury to Ewers because they didn't get the ball over the top into the end zone. So, Sark wants to take shots, and last year he got tired of empty shots. So I think that's where Worthy will come in. But also, I think he's 100% healthy, which he wasn't the last part of last season. So we'll see. But you're right. Mitchell's a big target. Nayor's a big target. They got a couple of freshmen, Jonte Cook. I think they really like him in the way he's played in camp. So, the downside, as you guys know, they don't have even a scrimmage or anything against a different colored jersey. So even against Rice, I think people will be real interested to see what happens out there.
You hear about and see the tweets from Sarkisian whenever they get a commit, like big humans. And someone, a Texas fan who watches our show, even asked Paxton, said, why is it that they look so damn good, monstrous when they get off the bus, but there's always been something, or at least lately there's been something missing? They're getting even bigger, aren't they, with what they want to do as they enter the SEC next year?
Yeah, no doubt. And it's the coincidence, A, that they're entering the SEC, and B, that Sark, where he most recently has been, and that's been in Alabama and in the NFL. So, those two things, big humans, running game, power running game, all go hand in hand. But you're right, and they're a little bit better, not only because they're big, but Kelvin Banks is really good and just a sophomore. Remember, he wasn't even an early enrollee last year. He came in the summer, so he didn't have a spring practice as well as his first training camp. And then, everybody's back, and they feel like they've got 2 or 3 guys that can rotate in where they won't lose a beat. So back to your first question, it all starts with the big humans on both sides of the ball, and they really like – you look at a guy like Byron Murphy, who's first team All Big 12, and he only started, I believe, 1 game last year. So, that goes to projection as much as production on what he has done. And Sark said he's been tough to deal with throughout training camp. So we'll see. We could play these conversations back the last however many years, and they'll all probably sound a bit similar. And then we'll see what happens 12 games in.
Roger, great to hear from you. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for your insight. Appreciate your time and what could be a special year. We'll see and probably know a little bit early, even if it's a win or a loss. Well, if it's a win, then that everything goes full throttle. If it's a loss, it's close like it was last year. Who knows? Thanks for your time. Roger Wallace, color analyst with Craig Way on the UT broadcast of football with us on 365 Sports. Used to work with him and Tyler back in the day in the 80s. Yeah,
I think we pretty well established they're very talented, and they're very deep at various positions, whether that be wide receiver, quarterback, offensive line. They're set up for the first time in a long time to be really strong. Running back, replacing Bijan. I know they got, stars and stars and stars that are looking to replace him, but still, he was pretty special. So, just ready for the talk to end and the walk to begin. Talking the talk's one thing, walking the walk's another. And certainly a lot of talk this season about Texas has been ultra positive, much like it has been for a Texas Tech, among others. And here pretty soon we're going to see, and I cannot wait. But, man, they sure do on paper. I say it every time we bring them up, it just looks different than it has, and it just seems better than it's been in a while. And there's not talk about the coach, every other day, like there could be with the Tom Herman eventually there was, or Charlie Strong pretty much throughout. They've got their guy. They know he's going to be the guy for the foreseeable future, and he's able to build, and he's been building and in a positive way, and there hasn't been some super distraction or some stupid thing that's interrupted that. It's been pretty drama-free for the most part, and like he said, they were knocking on the door last year. He brought up a couple of games they lost. Like, what about the Texas Tech game in overtime? Bijan fumbles on like the 1 foot line or whatever, and so there's another game that you can just point to and go like, that could have possibly gone differently. But I know you can do that with everything. You could do that with some of their wins. So, but point being, they could have had about 3 others on top of what they did last year. They were that close to it. So I wonder if that flips their way this year.
The close wins, I said this before, the close wins, you might have had 3, or close losses. You can say, okay, that could have been 3 wins. Probably better to say maybe 1 or 2, but you could have been 3, because I don't remember exactly their scores. That were probably like they blew the hell out of Oklahoma, but blew them out, excuse me. But they could have also lost a game or 2 that they won.
Yeah. I wish you hadn't just said that thing right there, because I didn't notice until you corrected yourself. But now it's all I can think.
I think that would be.
Now it's all I can think about. But no, I think the difference for Sark, though, the difference for Charlie Strong is Charlie Strong was, and no matter what anybody tells you, was about their 5th or 6th choice. when it came down to it. And the fans certainly felt that because they thought they were getting Nick Saban. And then if they weren't getting Nick Saban, it was like on down the line of these big names. And then they hired the coach from Louisville, which they didn't, fans didn't really want to do. And then Charlie Strong made some tactical errors in his way in the door, and that led to just stress the whole time. Tom Herman was the guy they wanted, and it didn't work out, so they're even madder at him because they wanted him, and then he wasn't performing. As where Sark comes in after the aftermath of these two guys and could really, and he was very wise, just was able to start fresh. And I think you do feel that, but again, they've got to prove it when it comes down to the games this year.
Go win. They have a chance with all due respect to the opening game the second week against Alabama on the road, who played them out of their drawers last year. I mean, just absolutely a game that would have almost, it kind of shocked the world about how Alabama was not able to just kind of put them away. In the end, they made it some plays, but that will be fun. And a lot of times over the years that I remember UT football with Mac Brown's teams, they win the games, a lot of those on the road. A lot of their biggest wins were in Lincoln, in Stillwater, and also back in the day, also at Kansas State in Manhattan. When we come back, he played wide receiver at Oklahoma State. He's now the football coach at Tyler High. A high school podcast that we have will be released tomorrow on one of our reels of 365 Sports on the Smoky.com presents the Texas High School Football Show. Our first week will be released tomorrow, and if you're a Texas Tech fan, my interview with Will Hammond from Hutto High School will be a part of that first one. But a couple of clips from Rashawn Woods and now Tyler High on Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, and Bedlam. That is next, and this is 365 Sports. I mentioned earlier that I met with a doctor today, and I did because I've had this lower back that I've been thinking there's a nerve, whatever. So I met with a doctor, Dr. Ackley at Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine. As he and I sat down to try to find a game plan to help me get through this stinging pain that I have at times in my upper hip, he had my MRI from Ideal MRI. I went by there, I asked Teresa, could I pick up a disc? And they had it, and they were able to look at it. And they also sent the images in the portal. It's an amazing company. I've been in their MRI machine 4 times. And one of them, twice it's been on my lower back, my lower lumbar. And able to use it from a year ago and help me have a game plan for my right hip with Dr. Ackley. It's idealmri.com with Dr. Rob Maxey, $1,100. The average MRI, theirs is never more than $497, and they'll also help with the insurance, and it could be less. Thanks to them, they are amazing at what they do at idealmri.com in the Central Texas Marketplace in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. And if you can't make it to Riverbend, DoorDash is available to bring it to you. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody, the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Rashawn Woods earlier this year was named the head football coach at Tyler High School, the one with Earl Campbell, the one with that dramatic and amazing back-and-forth game with Plano East in 1994. They've won state titles. They've had players that have moved on to the NFL. Now their head coach is a former Oklahoma State great, and Rashawn Woods, who had nearly 300 catches in his career and made a famous catch in an upset of Oklahoma, I think the year after the Sooners won the national title in 2001. He's now the head coach. They open up on Friday. This is not about him coaching high school. That is on a podcast we release tomorrow morning in our 365 Reel. It's about, well, Mike Gundy, who was his offensive coordinator when he was at Oklahoma State. Rashawn, you played at Oklahoma State, had a great career, nearly 300 catches, made some dramatic catches and moments for Oklahoma State, whether it's against Oklahoma in the Bedlam or whatever. Mike Gundy, I believe, was the offensive coordinator when you were there, and now he's been the head coach for a long, long time. Did you see that kind of success he would have as a head coach when you were there, when he was an offensive coordinator?
He's a guy that's extremely gifted as a coach. There's no doubt about that. One of the top coaches in the country. And he had a knack for putting us in situations offensively to win games. And he's continued to do that as a head coach. He's gotten guys, he's hired young men or adults to coach guys and to continue to do the same thing. He's had 17 consecutive winning seasons, which is historical, which may not ever be broken by another coach in the history of Oklahoma State football. He is truly a pioneer in his own right and continues to do really some extraordinary things. I know people are eventually wanting a national championship, which I think has just been right out of his grasp a couple of years. But the fact that Oklahoma State fans are even talking about that is a testament to what he's done in the last 17 years there.
All right, so that was part of the conversation. The other one, and I told you about that famous catch against Oklahoma in 2001, is that because of college football's landscape, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State might play, well, never again unless they were to meet in the postseason, but they do play one more time this year. I brought up Oklahoma State, I brought up Bedlam, and that's about the change. As you know, with Texas and Oklahoma headed to the SEC, the Big 12 has changed dramatically with the landscape of who they've added. What are your thoughts about Oklahoma and Oklahoma State probably not playing anytime soon unless it's a bowl game or a playoff game after this year?
Yeah, that was definitely a surprise. You know, I was surprised just like everybody else with Oklahoma and Texas moving. You want to see the Bedlam game, and you know, now that it's not going to happen, you wonder about the state of both programs and what direction they can go. Oklahoma, I think, is in probably the most volatile situation. Yeah, they make a little bit more money, but the league that they're in now, it's different. You know, it's different. If they are able to rise to the top in that league, that'd be very impressive. But the reality of it is that is a tall chore to ask. Whereas on the other hand, I think Oklahoma State ended up getting the better end of that deal, as long as everybody that's still in the Big 12, just because of the decisions that the commissions or the overseers have made to add the programs. You know, I was telling the guy who asked me the biggest, and they were exactly right, the biggest team that they could have got in right now in order to solidify the Big 12 was getting Colorado and Deion Sanders into the Big 12. Because once they did that, just the star power of him, just as an individual, and getting Colorado back ended up starting really a waterfall or cascade of teams jumping and making Big 12 now potentially down the road, not right now, but potentially down the road at the forefront or right there with at the likes of Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, and so on.
All right, Rashawn Woods, Oklahoma State star, now at Tyler High School. His thoughts about, there's a guy that lived it, played it, part of the memories. And then also what Mike Gundy was back early on prior to him becoming the head coach now, 17 years and running at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think it'll be, obviously for just mathematical reasons, it's good that Bedlam is over, as far as wins. Oklahoma State, severely behind in that rivalry.
It's a very lopsided rivalry,
yes. It's not one that was, and most rivalries are like that. There's not a lot of them that are just neck and neck.
There really aren't. There aren't a lot, yeah.
And if you want to go neck and neck, you have to just pick a time where both teams are the same. And then go, that's where the rivalry was at its best. But quite often, like A&M and Texas, they've had their good years where it was, a streak of one, a streak of another, maybe a little back and forth. But that one's restarting, and it's still, A&M would have to win the next 35 of them to make it even. Not all can be Texas and Oklahoma that are pretty close. But it's still going to suck for the fans. It's easier to not like the school that's right over there as opposed to now you have to find a whole new school to be your number one rival. And it's just weird. Like all of a sudden you're going to wake up and be like, okay, who do I not like the second most? And can I get all the rest of the fans to agree with that? Who we don't like the second most is now the team we don't like the first most, because the team we like the first most is gone.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's going to be a weird deal not having Bedlam, I think, for both schools. And I know Oklahoma will be off to greener pastures, literally and figuratively. But I think that even with the dominance of Bedlam, there's just something special about that. And that's not like the biggest state. It's not like we're, the state of Texas where there's Texas and Tech and Houston and TCU and there's A&M and there's UT and like you have all these various rivalries just within your own state. That's just them. That's just Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. That's the state of Oklahoma. And to not have that, I think is a loss for that state. But yeah, it's just part of the deal, and that's going to be, the situation when you look at whatever happens with the ACC and, whatever American rivalries that started to develop. And I know that wasn't like real historical by any means, but, things end, and that's unfortunate in some ways, but also maybe the way he's looking at it, you can be optimistic about change being good as well. And so if you're Oklahoma State, it's one less rivalry. It's also one less almost automatic loss on your schedule. And I'm not trying to say that in a negative way towards the Cowboys, but it's true. Like, there's one game that has been how many times does that game cost them in some form or fashion there at the end of the year? Like a playoff spot or a Big 12 title spot, that's something that maybe improves automatically by not having that game stand in their way of an extra win on the schedule.
I can just give an example of right here in the 254. Baylor was 128-1 over 30 years against A&M, or 228-1 over that time. A&M left the league, and guess what happened? They've won the Big 12 3 times since they didn't have to play that game.
Yeah.
And look,
but you're not suggesting, and we've done this before, you've said that before, you're not suggesting that during the time when Baylor really got better that they couldn't have beaten A&M.
No, they could.
I know that was in their head, though.
But it was a win that it was one of those things that wasn't going to be there. Guess who else wasn't in the league? A team that beat them a lot in Nebraska. That was 2 wins. That now all of a sudden, because at the time they didn't replace them, they didn't replace 4 teams, they only replaced 2. So you had 2 less teams in the rotation that had better records than you. Now, granted,
they wish they would have been playing Nebraska.
Now, Granted, when they replaced them with West Virginia and TCU, West Virginia and Baylor have kind of traded off shots depending on where they play the home game.
And they can't beat TCU.
But TCU, they traded off. They can't really beat them. But at least over the time, you trade off 2 games that you just were well behind in, and you could not.
But they also didn't beat Oklahoma for the longest of time. They started to beat Oklahoma.
It didn't. What I'm saying is it didn't really matter what the teams' names were. It just was their record against them. Yeah, it's 2 less teams that you're going to have to worry about.
OU is 82-20 against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
82-20.
No, they're not. They're 91-19.
Oh, is this not updated? I thought it was updated. All right.
No,
well, it's even now. Well, this is what I have. Okay. Well,
Mike Gundy's 3-15, I believe, against Oklahoma all time. But yeah, the last I checked, it was 91-19 Oklahoma, and very lopsided during Gundy's nearly 20 years. But like you said, that's kind of the state of a lot of rivalries. I mean, hell, Baylor and a lot of school like Texas Tech, that's a very tight one. I think rivalry-wise, I think Oklahoma State is. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but they've got a couple. And the TCU at one point was deadlocked, and then I think they might have even taken like a game advantage. And then obviously the last 7-8 years, it's TCU's 7-1, and they've just blown it open. But that was when Briles left. That was like a dead heat of those two all time.
And why it was nasty for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, it was 50-50 overall. But I think just from Rashawn Wood's perspective, obviously a great player at Oklahoma State. I don't think Oklahoma State's getting nearly enough attention when it comes to the teams that could, really propel themselves towards the top of the conference or sit on top of the conference. Now, granted, I don't think anybody's just going to run the conference. I don't think that TCU, Tech, Baylor, Oklahoma State, BYU, Cincy, whoever, I don't think anybody's just going to turn into Oklahoma where they win several titles in a row and they're just the top dog, and it's clear that there's this fall off after them. But I do think that when you're talking about who could potentially do that, or who could be a team that wins a couple years in a row, or who's a team that wins 3 out of 5 years, or goes on those types of runs, I think, I would start with the teams who've actually done it. So, Baylor, I think you have to give them some leeway there. I think TCU's obviously been in the mix and obviously very good. They, last year they didn't win the Big 12, but very good team. K-State obviously needs to be mentioned there as well. They've done it 3 times now. But I think Oklahoma State's another team that has been very close to having bigger results, and it's been that Bedlam game or just something like the Baylor loss in the championship game. Otherwise, they're in the playoff probably. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've been knocking on that door. So I do think Oklahoma State is almost quietly kind of sitting back while a lot of other teams are getting attention about who could be dominant, and they're one of those teams that I think should be mentioned.
I think what you do, if you win consistently, even though last year for them kind of was a pooper, I do believe that you keep winning over that kind of time, you're going to eventually have some good things happen. Just keep knocking on the door. Florida State had to do that for the longest time in trying to win a national title, but Miami was always in their way. Nebraska couldn't win it because Oklahoma was in their way, and then it was Miami and Florida State. You just keep it at elite level. Oklahoma State's been there a couple of times. Judson Crockett also wants to remind us that people with records against Oklahoma, they've kicked a lot of ass.
Oh yeah,
over the
for
years.
Sure. Yeah, we're not trying to make that an Oklahoma State thing. Just saying in general, that's a game that you've lost pretty much every year except for 3 times in 20 years under Mike Gundy. Now you don't even have to play that game. So if that's been a loss 17 out of 20 times, then imagine not having that loss automatically almost on the schedule. And I say that as respectfully as possible. So that's all I'm getting at, is that could be a good thing. Is, yeah, downside, you lose the rivalry. Like I said a few minutes ago, I think it sucks for the state of Oklahoma and football and its history. But on the bright side, if you were looking for a bright side, there's one team that has been an absolute thorn in your side that is not a thorn any longer. And, maybe on the recruiting trail, that'll be, something entirely different. But that's kind of a path that's now opened up that was otherwise a roadblock for Oklahoma State.
And, by the way, wet blanket, Oklahoma State bet on 91-17, whatever. When it's an automatic loss because the record says it is. Does it mean there weren't close games? Yes, there have been some great games along the way, but there's also been as many blowouts too. We're looking at the straight-up wins and losses of that game in that history of the series.
We're talking positively about Oklahoma State. It's not a negative that we're saying here. Well, it's a positive.
There's always someone or two that always wants to look at everything that is said in the negative way, and that's some people are like that. And then there's Paul Catalina, who's always right. I mean, Your glass is never even full.
No, I mean, the glass is broken on the ground.
So, all right, when we come back, Ricky Thompson, former Baylor wide receiver, who's now a part of their radio broadcast and has been for years, wide receiver, and now their sideline reporter. Boy, won't that be fun at 11 o'clock against Utah in a couple of days. He joins us next, and this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great customer service, great deals, and just a great time exploring all of their various options, whether it be getting your car worked on or whether it be just trying to find yourself in a new vehicle, whether that be a new or a pre-owned vehicle. Right now, there's a lot of construction out in front of the dealership because they are tearing up the roadway to improve the Highway 6 to be specific. And so they understand that it's a little bit of a headache to get to them. So with construction a mess, they want to make buying a car that much easier. And when it comes to buying cars, they've got the Buicks, the GMCs, the Cadillacs. New models include the 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s, which right now are discounted thousands, and qualified buyers can finance for 0.9%. They've got dozens of Sierras on the lot. They've got the inventory, the pricing, and the financing. If you were looking to get into a new GMC Sierra today, they've also got the lineup of Buick SUVs like the Encore GX. You can also get special financing on that right now. Save $3,250 on the new 2023 Buick Encore GX. Plus, qualified buyers can also get 1.9% financing and no payments until 2024. And they've got a lot full of not only new vehicles, but also quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well. Many in stock and under $25,000. And they want to say yes when others say no when it comes to credit approval. So you can check out all the new models, the pre-owns, or you can check out their award-winning customer service or their award-winning service department, which also has great customer service and is always standing by to keep you on the road and keep your vehicle in tip-top shape. Check out the dealership that's been in business for 24 years in Central Texas, building a reputation over that time as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Ricky Thompson, former Baylor and Washington, what was Redskins wide receiver, and probably will always be like that for Ricky Thompson. And he's also the sideline reporter for Baylor Radio, joins us on 365 Sports, thanks to Alliance Bank. And Ricky Thompson is with us live with Craig and Paul and David Smoak. Ricky, how much does someone like Ketron Jackson, who's a go-to receiver, how much does that help a quarterback?
Well, Smokey, I think it helps more than an average fan can imagine. And I'm going to go back. It's funny you start with that question because I'm going to go back to the BYU game last year. And I know Blake took a lot of grief for some of his play during the season, and some of that's warranted, some of it wasn't. But I can go back to that game specifically and tell you 3 plays where we either had receivers cut off a route or weren't in the position Blake thought they were going to be, and he lets go of the football. And when that happens, a quarterback loses confidence, and that's not something you regain in one ball game. And you gain that confidence by a guy outside that goes to make plays. And I know we've talked about last year too that we had offensive line back, we had our defensive line back, we had all this experience. Well, guys, remember we had none of our skill guys back. And I think that was really, really more of a problem than most of us realized it would be. I had a concern about that, but I think as the season went forward, you realized how big of a problem it really was. It was not a Taekwondo Thornton out there to make the big plays. And I just think the fact that from what I've seen so far, this guy's going to make a huge difference. He's going to go get balls, and he does that a couple of times. And Blake Shapen, Sawyer Robertson, whoever it is, the next time they see him there, they're going to let the ball fly. They're not going to hold it. They're going to let it go and have the confidence that he's going to go make a play. And you do that a couple of times, and then everything just snowballs and builds off the fact. So I think Ketron is going to be a huge key to this offense this year, as well as the rest of the experience gained from that receiving staff. I don't remember the catches last year, but it was almost comical how few catches that receiving corps had coming into the season.
Ricky, sometimes I think fans underestimate how hard it is for quarterbacks and receivers to get on the same page. You mentioned the confidence thing, or just that kind of it's also knowing how the receiver, knowing how the quarterback likes to improvise, how if they have to break off, what are you going to do? Those things were just kind of non-existent last year. How much do you think that changes with this whole offseason, that they've been working almost specifically on just those kind of things?
Well, I hope it changes a lot. And I played with a guy that was as good at that as I've ever seen in Theismann as far as reading receivers. That takes a lot of practice. But just think of this in particular. If you've got a slot receiver lined up in the slot, you've got Monterey Bowling in the slot, and he's got an option route. And by option route, I mean he takes off with the ball he reads whoever. If they flip a corner over to the slot guy, if a safety happens to come up on Monterey, which I would love to see a safety on Monterey, but if they flip the corner over there and Monterey has the option to bring that route inside or to bring it outside, Blake's got to know by the way Monterey's moving where he's going, because he's got to throw the ball on time. So that experience of doing it over and over and over makes so much difference. And if you get to the point where you can do that in a football game, it's hard to cover guys. When you've got the option of going either way as a receiver and you've got a quarterback that can make that read, you've got 5 or 6 more plays a game that could be really big plays just because of the fact you've got a receiver and a quarterback on the same page.
Ricky, how does Richard Reese get better after an all-freshman Big 12, type of year a year ago? Now he's going to have a little bit more help. We kind of know the situation. He wasn't supposed to play as much as he did, as early as he did. He had to. But now he's got Dominic Richardson in the fold amongst some young guys coming up. Just your thoughts on how he improves and how that room improves this year?
Well, Craig, I think you named how he gets better. Dominic Richardson is how Richard Reese gets better. I think he's going to have much more competition back there. I know he's gotten a little bigger. He's got a year's worth of experience. As the plans would have been last year, he probably doesn't play at all. He probably redshirts, and he ends up rushing for, 972 yards, just under 1,000. So this guy's going to be a lot better. I know in this wide zone, we keep going back to Abram Smith and saying fall forward, fall forward. Well, Richard really wasn't big enough to fall forward last year, and I think that's a big difference you're going to see in him. I think his speed is still there. He runs hard. I think you're going to see a lot more push out of him this year just through experience, being able to cut up the field and not step in the backfield, taking time to look for where the hole is, just cut the ball up. And I think with the fact you've got a guy behind him like Dominic Richardson that's going to really push and play well when he's in there will just make Richard Reese even better. And what a surprise, at least to me, he was last year. He was pretty darn good, guys, and I think he'll be better this year.
Ricky, there is always going to be player or 2 or 5 or whatever, depending on the team, depending on senior or player leadership, that will push the envelope. Dave Aranda stressed it and discussed it throughout last year, the disconnect even with coaches. He made changes with the staff. He has sent a couple of guys on their way, maybe didn't invite a few people back. He got a little more tough love, I guess you could say, and admitted that. How much does that matter in a locker room?
I think it's huge. I just think when players see teammates that maybe get by with things that they're not trying to do or they're not doing or their teammates aren't doing, and you get by with that 3 or 4 times, I think it builds some resentment, and I don't think that's intentional on the coaching staff's part, but I just think it happens. And I think that attitude and the closeness in a locker room is really fragile. I think it's always fragile. And to build that and maintain it, and with these moves that have been made, I don't know, even at the scrimmage last Saturday, I thought that those guys were really fired up to be out there. They seem to like each other. And I mean, you don't have to love each other in that term, but you got to like each other. You got to have respect for each other, and you got to play hard for the guy next to you. And I think that starts with a coaching staff doing the right things, making the right moves. And they're not going to do it every time. It's impossible. But I think the changes that have been made, the fact that you brought in some transfers, that a couple of guys aren't going to be there that maybe last year would have still been here playing, and they're not going to be here. I think it speaks volumes. I really do.
Ricky, how hard is it for young guys also to realize when you lose, especially on defense, you lose a Jalen Petrie, who is one of the greatest defensive players that Baylor will ever see, and did things that people before him hadn't done before, and is really hard to do, that you as a young guy think like, okay, well, I'm going to step into that spot and I'll be the Petrie this year, but maybe you don't even realize how hard Petrie worked to get to that point.
Yeah, and I think maybe we all knew Petrie was good, but I'm not sure we really knew how much you're really going to miss a guy like him and Terrell Bernard inside. And it's not just the ability, Paul, it's the leadership too. And Jalen didn't say a whole lot, but he was always there. He was always making plays, and his voice was with action, and that's impossible to replace. And I think the one thing that does happen there, when other guys see how hard he plays, even if they see it on film, they want to replicate that. And I think eventually it does carry over. And I just think experience-wise, this team is much different than what I saw last year. We'll see how that carries over to Saturday. We know that's all that counts. We can scrimmage all we want, but until the lights are on, nothing counts. But I've just got to think that both offensively and defensively, this is going to be a much more experienced football team. They're going to play in that manner. I think they're going to be more confident. I think it's important to get a good start. Texas State, then you got Utah coming in week 2. So they're going to have to get their feet on the ground really quickly. But I just think there were a lot of factors involved in this team last year that we won't see this year, and I'm hoping that most of those are positive.
Ricky, could you sense that down on the sidelines? I mean, obviously you're next to all the action, so you hear things and see things that not everybody does, but it was evident from the 10,000-foot view, like just something's not quite right, and obviously with the changes that were made, we learned, more about, okay, yeah, things weren't, chemistry-wise the greatest, but did you sense that at the time, or was that more of an after the fact that everybody kind of caught on to that?
No, I mean, Craig, you're right. On the field is so much. I wish everybody could do it one game.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, you'd realize how fast that game is. Sitting in the stands, you can watch it. You can tell guys are fast, but until you're down there and you're right beside it, I don't think people really and you guys have been on the sideline, you don't really realize how fast that game is.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think with that and the things that I can hear down there, both from players on the field, from coaches on the sideline, I do think there was a bit of a disconnect. But I do know one thing, Dave Aranda's a pretty smart dude, and he has learned a ton from that. And if you get that benefit from it and you learn from it and you go forward, then I think you're in great shape. And I just think I can't put a finger on it, but there was just really something missing last year. And I go back and think, well, you really never had the guy outside that caught a 10-yard ball and took it to the house. Monterey did one. I guess that was Oklahoma State, I think, guys, where he really took one to the house. It was more of a 10-yard catch. But you need to see more of that. You need to see more of the big plays, the turnovers, interceptions, returns, and that type thing that builds momentum and gets you going. But it seems like this team just never really got over the hump last year, and I don't think they played with a lot of confidence. And I think that just really swept throughout the football team. And sometimes that happens. But, yes, I think you could tell it on the sideline, and I don't think it was intentional, but I think you could tell that there was a difference, no question, between that team you saw in the Sugar Bowl, Big 12 champions, and the guys we saw last year.
Yeah, I mean, no question about that. We've mentioned Jackson and what he can mean to Shapen. Monterey Baldwin's ability to be dynamic and break anything and go a long, long way. They have some dudes. They're young. They haven't really done it much. There have been flashes of even a walk-on and now scholarship player like Josh Camry, Amari Winfield, Hal Presley, Jordan Neighbors, and there's others, Bonner, others. Who among that group do you think will be the one that can or will or needs to step up?
Well, Monterey needs to step up, but the first thing Monterey needs to do is stay healthy. And I think that was a huge problem for him last year, staying healthy. And I don't know what all of the injuries were. I know he had some muscle issues, and sometimes guys that can run like that do. But sometimes you just got to play hurt too. And there's a difference playing hurt than injured. If you're injured, you don't need to play. If you're hurt, you need to play. And I had coach after coach that will tell you that, and other players see you play like that. But Smoak, I don't think I can name anybody in particular out there that needs to make it, but somebody needs to make the plays on Saturday that makes the rest of that football team look and say, you know what, I can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make a play just like that. But it just takes one guy to do that at the right situation in the right game. Keytron goes up and takes the ball when he's got two guys on him, and one of them decks him, and he comes up with the ball and just points first down and walks back to the huddle. that's enough. I mean, that'll get those guys to where they are really fired up. Richard Reese runs over somebody in the secondary. I don't know if you guys remember 2 seasons ago when Abram Smith pushed the Texas defensive back into the ground with a stiff arm. You saw the sideline when he did that. I thought they were going to kill each other on our own sideline. I mean, that, to me, that was one of the plays that turned that game to the point where there was no sneaking way we were going to lose. Not after that play. So somebody's got to make those plays, and you can make them in practice all day long. I remember Art Monk talking one time. We were running quick post type plays in games and just getting busted, and a TV guy asked him the best time to run that play, and he said on Friday in practice. So my point being, it's easy to make plays Monday through Friday. You got to make them on Saturday. And I think when you see that in person, in action, and the other guys feed off of it, I mean, we saw it 2 years ago. After that, everybody made plays.
It becomes contagious,
It becomes contagious, and I'm saying this because I think we've got the guys to make plays. I really do. I mean, last year we had, as I mentioned, we had all our front guys back, but we didn't have any skill experience anywhere last year. And I don't think that's the case here. I think you've got that experience. They just have to perform.
Ricky, thank you. We look forward to it every week based on availability, but also look forward to it thanks to Alliance Bank and their sponsorship of this segment and the one with J.J. Joe on Mondays, both a part of the Baylor Football Radio broadcast. Look forward to seeing you on September the 2nd. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys. Excited it's here.
Ricky Thompson, Baylor Radio sideline reporter and also former wide receiver. When we come back, a lot to get to. A couple of different schools out of the Big 12. We'll get to some super chats. Chris, we read one earlier, and we'll read a couple of more, including yours. Brandon Helwig covers UCF, and also Chad Brendel, who covers Cincinnati, on where they are with the Bearcats. And we'll go through all 14 teams between now and next week. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, 1.9% right now available for 72 months. Employee pricing for all on the 2023 Gladiator Sport, the Willys, and the Freedom Edition, plus $1,000 rebate, and get 90 days at no payments. 90 days no payments for all of the Jeep brand vehicles, including the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. Also, 2.9% financing for up to 72 months on the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, plus $3,500 rebate and no payments for 90 days. 2.9% for 72 months on the 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star, Bighorn, and Laramie trucks. That's the Lone Star, Bighorn, and Laramie trucks. And 20% off MSRP on the Lone Stars and Bighorn crew cabs. Ted Teague, the general manager. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
At
Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bars, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
.365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
All right, Brandon Hailwood, who covers UCF for UCFsports.com, will join us in 15 or 20 minutes, but a couple of other things. Let's start with this. Brett Yormark was in Lubbock. We cannot play the audio because of the feed where we got it, but Brett Yormark speaking at their kickoff luncheon, telling Joey McGuire that he will be in Austin on Thanksgiving week.
Thanksgiving
Day? Is it day? Yeah, it is a day. It's the Thursday night game. That he will be in Austin for the Texas Tech and Texas game. Not to put too much pressure on you, but basically all but saying you need to do your job.
Yeah, he said you need to repeat what happened last year. He was playing to the crowd really well. They went bananas. And I've seen a lot of Texas fans who were, I've seen one tweeted at the governor, like, please do something about this, which is just crazy. I mean, he's just playing to the crowd, and it's just a remark. But yeah, it's he knows, like, it's another one of those things. He knows the rooms he's in, and he knows how to play to that crowd a lot.
Yeah, it's Black Friday, actually. So
Okay.
we need to get our P's and Q's right on that. That's my fault, too. But, yeah, it's the day after Thanksgiving. So he'll be there in Lubbock for that one, and that'll be Austin for that one, and that'll be a huge game, potentially. I mean, that could have Big 12 title implications for sure that late in the season. And just the fact that it's going to be, you know, this big event because of what's to occur after the season ends. You didn't really need any more spice for that game, I don't think. And we're too far out to really start building that up. But now he unintentionally or intentionally has. And so that's added some more, gas to that little fire that started building already for that one. And depending on, how those two teams play from now until, that game, like I said a minute ago, that could be even bigger with big things on the line, like a spot in the title game. So, yeah, I mean, I get he's playing to his audience, but I also get that it's the era where you're not really speaking to just a closed room of people anymore.
Nope.
Unless it's like an FBI office where you have to turn in your phone beforehand, and even then I still don't trust that somebody doesn't have like a mic somewhere hidden. So you've got to be mindful of that. And I like it on the one hand. On the other hand, I kind of just feel like you don't even need to take the shot, and you kind of riled up, a Hornets. Not that I'm worried about the reaction by Texas fans or anything, and he shouldn't be worried about that either. But I guess riled some folks up, and if that's your cup of tea, then he just did a great thing, and he got you excited and laughing at the way that the season could potentially go. If you're on the other side of it, though, you can see we're like, Come on, man. Like, really, now you're going to be all paranoid about how that game goes. I've already seen that. Texas fans are already expecting to get, like, screwed on calls this year, and I think Oklahoma fans are to some certain extent. I don't know. I think it's a comment he kind of could have left out, but given the audience he's speaking to, I totally get why he took the shot that he did, and that'll only add more fuel to the fire. Just in the grand scheme of things, it's already a pretty hot fire as it is with the Big 12 right now. It's
a lot of Big 12 schools, those who have left or not, and those who are current, will think that, well, wait a minute, the commissioner for the longest of time, Dan Beebe, wanted to make sure that he always appeased the big boys like Texas. So he never said anything like that, I don't think, in public, but there was always that thought. And there was always a thought that, again, it's not true, but there was the perception that Texas was going to get the benefit of the doubt. And Paxton and other UT fans, Sandra Green, will lose their mind when they hear that because they can be upset about calls that have gone against them too.
Yeah, no, you can already see. I've seen that over the last few weeks. There's already a lot of folks, like if they don't go 10-0, it's going to be, or 12-0, it's going to be the official's fault, and it was the Big 12 and it was a screw job and all that. I mean, you can just see the first wrong call that turns a potential game where that's going to be the reason why, and not because they didn't cover well enough in the first half or something. So that's already kind of implanted. I think by doing what he said today, you only add more fuel to like that sort of paranoia, where that's where I see it as a negative, where instead of it just being about this final run, it's like they're out to get us or, something along those lines. Not a big deal, but not a shot that he needed to necessarily take. But I get, also why, and he will get, some segment of the fan bases that do love that he decided to take the shot that he did.
Well, and in this day and age, and I know, Craig, you kind of wince when I say that, but we can't say anything, and sometimes you need to be called out for it, but everybody seems like there's a constant, offended. And I'm not even getting to politics. I'm just getting everyone, he's in Lubbock in front of the kickoff luncheon. If he was in Austin and said that, then Red Raider fans would lose their mind, and so would most everybody in the Big 12. Speaking of which.
I would say also, on the offended thing, we only think that because we see everybody's opinion now. We didn't always grow up hearing everybody gets offended. It's like, no, not really. Just the people that otherwise, without the internet, you'd never even know existed, are offended for half a second before they move on to the next tweet that offends. And so it's, I don't really agree with the everybody's offended, but we can agree to disagree on that.
It seems like that because you're right. It's right there in front of us. It never was like that. Now, speaking of that, remember when we had the North Carolina soccer coach that basically all but said he wanted to see Cal and Stanford because of recruiting disadvantages and also inviting them into the back in their neighborhood and competing against them with the advantages that especially Stanford has. And he said, I hope they die on the vine. Well, Garrett, he had to back off of that. North Carolina women's soccer coach Anson Durrance has released the following statement. I want to clarify my recent remarks regarding ACC expansion. I have the utmost respect for Stanford and California. They're outstanding institutions, dedicated leaders, committed students, world-class soccer programs, and coaches. I don't think conference expansion is in the best interest of Carolina and the ACC at this time, and I trust and respect the decisions the Chancellor, Director of Athletics of UNC, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips, and others. He didn't quite back off what he said.
No, well, he would be disingenuous if he did.
Because what's wrong? He was being honest, and it wasn't anything where he was being honest.
Well, and who's mad it was there's the way he said it. The die on the vine thing was the reason why it became a thing, was because that was just so straight to the point and matter of fact that kind of like Brett Yormark, it's just something that you don't typically hear or you wouldn't typically say. And that's really why Brett Yormark is going to get any flack. It's because, yes, he's taken a shot, so to speak, at a couple of the big brands who have the most fans and the loudest, online presence in a lot of cases. But it's just not something somebody in his position would typically say. Yeah. Even if that's what you feel and you believe, it's just not something you say normally. You keep it a bit more professional. So that's where I see that. And that's the thing here as well. Is like he doesn't regret what he said. He regrets the way that he said it. And like if he could have tweaked one part of a sentence, he means all the rest of it. It's just shouldn't have said die on the vine. Shouldn't have openly almost wished for that. Other than that, I think he agrees with everything that he said, and he still believes it, and he doubled down on it, and I think that's great that he doubled down on it. That's what's in the message, not the let's mention everybody. We're forced to mention so that we cover all of our bases. And the commissioners and the blah, 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 all that BS. Like, you know what you meant, and you doubled down on what you meant, but you did enough of apology that you got the point across.
Somebody asked him to write that.
Oh, for sure.
He's an Olympic sport, and it's going to be adding those schools to it will make it really hard on his sport. B, North Carolina is one of the 5 most elite soccer programs in the country. C, Stanford is another one of those elite most 5. And D, if you asked Kirby Smart right now, if he never had to worry about LSU again and gave his honest opinion about it, he wouldn't be like, oh, man, I really hope that it all works out for them. Like, oh, no, you're telling me that I never have to worry about them beating me again? Like, it's one less thing I have to worry about?
So, like with Bedlam?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, two super chats. We do this. From Chris, $5. Thank you. Guys, if the Big 12, the ACC, and Notre Dame were to merge into a one mega conference, I think they could really stand firm against the SEC and the Big 10.
Yeah, I would think so. Notre Dame could make any conference better, but they don't care about that.
Yeah, I agree with you if Notre Dame's involved as a full-on member, football, everything. But without Notre Dame, not quite. But, with what you said there, I think I don't know about matching the SEC and all that, but Notre Dame would certainly get them much closer than any other sort of combination of anything would. And if they could pull that off, I think that they do set themselves up to be in a much better position than they are currently. That much is clear, and a great position if Notre Dame were attached. I just remain a non-believer in them being forced to really do anything. And with their current situation, who exactly is forcing them into that at the moment? They've got to say that they want to have. You got your boy Jack Swarbrick out there on Dan Patrick Day talking about them trying to get Cal and Stanford a landing spot. And there's no indication that their TV deal is going to be so low that they'll be forced into a situation there. So it just to me seems like more of a pipe dream. And sure, somebody could say, "I told you so" 8 years from now. But I don't think in the immediate future that there's going to be any of that. So it just remains one of the things where you just keep saying it long enough, and eventually Notre Dame's going to have to join a conference. Well, that's been going on for years and years where people have been saying that. And maybe we're getting closer just because time's passing by. But until I see them forced to do something, I think they're going to remain as is and as independent as they possibly can be. But if you could get them in there as full members, full ACC, no indie stuff, then, you'd be in clear number 3, and you'd be a lot closer to the top 2 than any other scenario for sure.
Louis Doe, I'm not sure I get this. Oklahoma State can beat Texas, and Oklahoma often just wear Irish 17-5-2 or BYU jerseys 6-1. Supers and highlighted membership messages show up here. I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe that's the record that Oklahoma that those two schools, Notre Dame and Brigham Young, have against Texas or Oklahoma combined.
He's saying that Oklahoma State could beat Texas and Oklahoma often. All they need to do is wear Notre Dame or BYU jerseys.
Okay, that's what
And then the other part you mentioned was like the automated message at the end of it. So that's what he was getting at. It was a joke. And, that'd be one way. Just flip the jerseys and the whole new mindset and ability appears. So I got you, and appreciate the super chat.
Thank you, retired stockbroker. I always have to go about things very slowly. When we come back, Brandon Helwig, he covers UCF. Paul's about to leave here in about 15 minutes for some duty that we're doing because of the opening of high school football season.
I'm just going to go now.
This is almost Hawaii-ish. This is very Hawaii-esque.
Wait, whoa. Who am I doing this for?
Garrett and Jacob. For Tanner.
You'll get there eventually.
For Craig and for me.
Yeah, there we go.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Should have done it last week, and you wouldn't have to take today off.
Well, I did do it
when
last week.
When we come back, Brandon Helwig, and we appreciate you. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com. Samantha Duvall joins us. She's the marketing director who knows all of the specials and also the events coming up. And thank you very much, as always, for your time. So all of these holidays are over. We've hit the meat of, literally, of the summer. And your thoughts about as you hit the month of August and into football season, Samantha?
Football season's right around the corner, so that means it's perfect time for tailgating. The best time to grab our hamburger patties is right now through the end of July. We still have our sale going on with our regular patties and our jalapeno and cheese patties. They're $12 a package, so that's 4 patties to a package. It's perfect for the time for football. Gather all your family around. That way you can grill it up.
Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu and how they age it as well. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Paul left. He'll be out for the last hour doing some technical work and technology with what we have coming up Friday night with high school football broadcast. We're not joined by Brandon Helwig, UCF publisher for Rivals Network. It's UCFsports.com. He joins us with Craig and David. Thanks for your time, Brandon. Appreciate your patience as well. And it seems like I don't know if any school more than UCF has had more of a jolt from joining the Big 12. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just with, obviously this is, a journey that, in some respects has taken a long time. In other ways, not so much, considering, UCF's program started basically from scratch in 1979. It's only been, 1A/FBS since 1996. But yeah, I think just from a recruiting standpoint and the buzz, in the community and the fan base and, under recruiting rankings, we'll see how it pans out. But right now, UCF is number 1 in the new Big 12, even taking into account, the schools that are coming in next year from the Pac-12. So, yeah, I think UCF is definitely, there's a tremendous buzz and a jolt from that invitation.
So there's the new 4, Brandon, which UCF is a part of, and then in the Big 12 offices, it's the new, or the next wave of schools. The spotlight shifted before UCF could even make its debut, but what are your thoughts on, another wave of Pac-12 schools that will now be coming into the league next year after all of this realignment madness?
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of hard to have a real strong opinion either way, just because I think from the UCF perspective, you're just glad you're part of this group. You feel like the window was closing in terms of, if you're a group of 5 school to get the opportunity to reach up to the Power 5. Well, I guess it's not Power 5 anymore, just to reach that Power 4 level. Maybe there's an opportunity for SMU. We'll see. I know you guys have been talking about, the ACC. That's kind of a crazy story. But just the fact that UCF is going to the Big 12, whether the league was going to, remain at 12 or grow beyond that, there's going to be travel regardless. Whether it's, going out to Lubbock, Texas, or Manhattan, Kansas, or in some ways, honestly, with these 4 additions from a fan standpoint, if you're, flying commercially, maybe it's a little bit easier, to fly to Arizona State with a nonstop to Phoenix. There's plenty of nonstops to Denver, to go see Colorado. We have nonstops to Salt Lake City for Utah. So in some ways, it might be a little bit easier travel compared to some of the other teams in the Big 12.
I asked about the jolt it's given UCF as far as the program, the athletic department. We've had Terry Mohajir and obviously Gus Malzahn and others on. What about the fan base? It seems like they've been waiting for this moment. Some people thought it was still too early, not fans of UCF, but some people thought maybe not quite yet. But they seem to be. I saw the shuttle bus, the student shuttle bus with all the Big 12 logos. Do you sense that as well, that they just can't wait for the first game?
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, of course. I just, just the excitement, around the fan. I think it all kind of, in some ways, you can kind of trace it back. UCF obviously had their tremendous run in football in 2017 and 2018 with the undefeated streak. Won the Peach Bowl, after the 17th season against Auburn, kind of the self-declared national champs, although it turned out that they were number 1 in one of those metrics that got into the NCAA record book. So there's some legitimacy to that. But I just think at that point in time, UCF fans, they kind of got a taste of what it was like to get national media attention. And, they're going back and forth with their friends who are Florida and Florida State fans and all that. And you just kind of long to feel like you were at that major league level of college football. And even though, everyone says, if you're FBS, you are, it's not really the same. You're not treated the same when you're not at that level. And I think that's just what I think just fans are just, through the roof about just looking at, ESPN.com and seeing seeing the Big 12 preview. The Big 12 gets the attention that, the American or Conference USA, just doesn't get.
So, Brandon, the excitement's all fun, and there will be, fun festivities, but eventually it's the football, right? The results that are going to matter. I mean, a lot of people have, said that they think that UCF could be the team of the new 4 that comes in and makes the biggest impact right away. I mean, Gus Malzahn, and we've heard all about John Rice Plumlee, but what, from somebody who's super inside, are maybe the things that you're thinking of or eyeing or the big stories to you as they get prepared to go and make their Big 12 debut here in just a couple weeks?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, I mean, UCF is one of those schools that starts a couple of days early. It's just 8 days away. They open the season hosting Kent State. We're not going to get any. Honestly, we're not going to take away anything or much from that game. Kent State, they lost their coach who left to be the offensive coordinator under Prime at Colorado. Most of their starters transferred out. I think the USA Today came out with some rankings the other day. I think they had them like 130th overall in FBS. I mean, there's FCS teams that are better than Kent State. We won't know a lot about this team, but the week 2 is really going to say a lot about how good this football team can be, because that's UCF goes all the way out to Boise. Boise State, preseason favorite of the Mountain West. It'll be sort of a semi Big 12 caliber game. Can they handle the travel? Because there's going to be a lot of travel in the Big 12 this year, and UCF is one of the schools that plays 5 Big 12 road games. How would they do against a solid team in Boise State? So that'll really kind of tell us, or kind of give us a glimpse of what this season could be like if they go there and kind of take care of business and do what it takes. That obviously will have people a little bit more optimistic this could be, you know, a season that UCF can make a buzz. But, you know, they just got to do well in the early Big 12 schedule, because I think it's kind of front loaded in terms of who they will play. You know, the Big 12 opener is on the road at Kansas State. The home opener is a week later against Baylor. There's a road game against Oklahoma in there. You know, those are three, you know, probably some of the tougher games they're going to play. There's a road trip to Kansas in there too. So, you know, if UCF can do reasonably well in that first half of the schedule, that could bode well towards the end.
You mentioned recruiting, and Brandon, we appreciate your time, but you mentioned that. How often are they going to win head-to-head battles, and I'm not saying they haven't, with Miami and Florida and Florida State?
Oh, they have. It's still, you know, obviously those programs are going to get, you know, some of the top recruits. But honestly, you know, if you want to talk about, you know, who's recruiting on the same level, I mean, UCF, they really are. I mean, Florida State right now have, you know, tremendous recruiting classes. I think, you know, they're top 5, I think, of every recruit on their top 5 on Rivals. UCF overall right now, Rivals recruiting ranking is 24th. Miami is 15. But they have won head-to-head battles. I mean, just in this year's class, you know, Jalen Hayward, one of the more recent commitments, a defensive back from Brevard County near here. You know, he had offers from Miami. You know, there's several other players. And one of the biggest, you know, one of the names that we're going to watch, you know, one of the top freshmen to watch at UCF this year is John Walker, who arguably might be the biggest commitment, you know, really in this Gus Malzahn era at UCF. And he had offers from literally everyone. He could have gone to Florida. You know, there was a lot of people thought he initially committed it to UCF, and Florida tried like crazy to get him to flip to them. And he could have gone to Ohio State, Miami. He could have gone anywhere he wanted. They have won battles. They are continuing to win battles. And that's the thing that I think if you look across this state, you know, some schools are getting a little bit nervous. You know, you look at Florida State, and, you know, they're a traditional program. They're recruiting great, but, you know, they're getting a little bit antsy when they look at the ACC and they're looking at UCF in the Big 12. I mean, we'll see how those numbers, those future revenue numbers, how they exactly break down. But I think everyone is projecting the Big 12 will make more per school than the ACC will in a few years when that new Big 12 contract kicks in. And that's, you know, one reason you see all the unrest in Tallahassee right now is because, you know, they're upset that a program, UCF, that, you know, they probably see as a lesser program, is going to make more media revenue than they are.
Yeah, I could tell by the way you could hear in your voice how happy that makes you, and also UCF fans just be able to just jab that in there, and that's a great thing. It's also why the ACC is in the state that it's currently in. Just a few years ago, Brandon, we had this young recruit, this 4-star running back that was committed to Baylor, and I remember seeing him interacting with the coaching staff at that time, and he had gotten this big old Baylor tattoo on his arm, and he eventually, because of the fallout that would happen with that staff, not even end up suiting up for the Bears, but go on to be a great running back, and now UCF's running backs coach. I know Cam Martin has been there previously, but what have been some of the talks and the early returns on the impact he is making and can make for them moving forward?
Yeah, he's a great guy. You know, he's one of the youngest kind of up and comers in college football. I think he might just be, I forget his age. He might be just like 25 years old or something like that. But I had the opportunity to talk with him at the recent media day, and he's kind of had a huge rise. I think his last year at Auburn may have been in 2019. Can't remember if he played in 2020, but I think he took a year off, and then the following year joined, you know, Gus Malzahn's staff here at UCF in an off the field role. He was an analyst. He helped with recruiting, and I think, you know, and then from there, G.J. Kinney, who, you know, people remember from Texas, and you know, originally from there, you know, he got the job at Incarnate Word, and Cam joined him on staff, and he was going to join them. Well, he actually had, because Kenny moved on to Texas State, you know, this past off season, and was going to be coaching at Kansas State this year. There was an opening at UCF. The running backs coach left right before spring practice started. So Gus didn't hesitate, even though, you know, Cam doesn't have, you know, most experience in the world as a position coach. You know, he saw enough, you know, from him and knew it. Actually played for Gus at Auburn, and, you know, I'd worked with him that 1 year that he offered him the job right away. He didn't even have to interview any of the other candidates. And, you know, Cam said it was kind of a whirlwind. He had already just bought a house. You know, near Texas State and was getting ready just to kind of settle in there, but he came running back to UCF as a tremendous opportunity. And just from a recruiting standpoint, he's been a fantastic recruiter. UCF has 2, 4-star prospects committed at running back for this year's class. He's got another 4-star running back committed in the 2025 class. He's really got a bright future ahead.
Brandon, thanks for your time. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you again down the road. Brandon Hellwig of UCFsports.com on many things. Knights, and we appreciate them and his coverage of them. Also, whenever we can get Mark Daniels, the voice of UCF, which we've had many, many times, including Mo Hauser and Gus Malzahn. Around the corner, we will hear from Chad Brendel, but not next. A couple of things. I want to go back to this Brett Yormark comment at a Lubbock kickoff luncheon. It's got everybody all like tied up in it. I'm going to come back with my thoughts on it. Craig's kind of given his, but also take some of yours. What were your thoughts about Brett Yormark and what he said about the Black Friday game between Texas Tech and Texas? This is 365 Sports. There's a beautiful tennis academy behind Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. Yes, it has an incredible gym with all of whatever you need when it comes to working out, staying fit, and losing weight in inches. But behind it, there are 16 or 18 tennis courts. There's a stadium court, which has actually the stands that you can watch big boy tennis. There's been collegiate events there. There's been some pro events there, and it is fantastic. And then they took a couple of the tennis courts, and there was a bunch of them, and turned them into pickleball courts. And I've said this before, it has really taken off. It's a sport that I remember when I first saw a handful of people. It kind of makes a different sound when the rackets are hitting the pickleball. And I've gotten to know this guy, Scott, who's been through rotator cuff surgery, and he really can't do too much. He can't play golf right now, but he started to play pickleball as a way to kind of keep some of his cardio and be smart with how he uses his arm and his shoulder, although it's been, I think he told me this morning, 13 weeks. It's an amazing sport. I have not yet played it. I love to play ping pong. Never was a fan of tennis as far as me being able to play it. But right now, Jody Thurman is the pro, and they have a tremendous showing every single day. Lessons available as well with Jody Thurman, the pickleball expert and instructor, and courts available at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Come shop the greatest selection in Central Texas and save big on Ram trucks during the Make This the Summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, 20% off MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Plus, if you're a first responder, you get an extra $500 bonus cash. We've got the inventory and we're making big deals. Hurry in today. They won't last long. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Christopher on the chat room saying that, where's Brandon Helwig? You absolutely just missed him. We'll have that up. It'll be on the site at some point in the rotation of segments and guests that we have. But sorry that you just missed him. All right, so I asked about the Brett Yormark tweet, the comments from Brett Yormark, and it's all over the place, and some are losing their minds, some are laughing their butts off, and so there we go with that. Let me get back again to actually what he said, and I'm having some issues here from my computer. Can you go to, I'm trying to think of where you
hunt something down on Twitter?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna put it up. I'm gonna send it to you. So here are the actual comments. My computer's kind of frozen a little bit. All right, so here is the actual quote. Coach Joey McGuire, I'm not going to put any pressure on you. This is while he's speaking in front of football fans, Texas Tech fans, etc. in Lubbock. But I'm going to be in Austin on Thanksgiving. And you better take care of business like you did right here in Lubbock last year. So I asked you in the chat room, and we discussed it a little bit back around 30 minutes ago. What are your thoughts about it? What do you think about it? Are you like, whatever, double M, the commission comments will just be bulletin board material and art for the season. Let's see here. Deputy, I don't mind what Yormark said from Tim, but the Big 12 is already a tinderbox with this year, so it really wasn't in good taste in my opinion. Sandra Green, UT fan, not offended by that clown, Yormark.
Yeah, I'm not offended by that clown. No, I mean, I know you might not have said it that way, but it appears that way when you take a shot 3 words later, just to say.
Tech by with a beat down. Let's see, from TJ Scott, of course, Brett Yormark talked up Tech while he was at Tech. That's going to be overlooked by some. Let's see here.
I think that's obvious, but
Robert
I think
Nichols, he wasn't wrong.
I think that he, and not speaking to that comment specifically, but I think in general for everybody that's saying, and I agree that he was clearly speaking to a Texas Tech audience. That's warranted, but I also think, like we said the earlier conversation about this, you're not just speaking to the Texas Tech audience.
No, nothing's like that.
You're not. I don't care if it's closed door, ticket only. Somebody is listening from outside somehow or another, and clearly multiple angles to the Brett Yormark comments. Multiple people within were talking. So, yeah, I just think that he's smart enough, and he probably knew that this would it wouldn't surprise me if he had an idea of like, I'll take a shot and get people riled up. I mean, he could have planned it that way. Maybe it was entirely off the cuff. I don't know. I don't want to give him too much credit or whatever, but you just have to know when you're in his position and talking. You're not just talking to whoever's directly in front of you.
I remember there was a former basketball coach at Baylor who made a comment after a game trying to stick up for the school she coached for, and she said something about punching somebody in the face if they disrespected Baylor. And one of the reasons I bring that up is because I don't think she always understood that what you say now anywhere, whether it's in Waco or wherever, is immediately out on social media and the internet. Here's from Paxton. He gets to witness the beatdown in person.
Yeah, I mean, so long as it goes differently than last year. I mean, Tech won that game in Lubbock last year. I'd expect a different result just based, those two teams on paper. But who the hell knows what Black Friday looks like at this point? I mean, who's playing? Do we even know that? I mean, who's healthy? What's the team's record? So, yeah, I mean, that's entirely possible. It's also entirely possible it could be the exact opposite, and Tech blows out Texas. It could be down to the wire, triple overtime. I mean, we have no idea. So, if anything, Paxton, Texas, not that they probably needed it, but when that time rolls around, I'm sure these comments will pop back up and there will be a little extra fuel to the fire for sure. But I get the confidence, though. I do.
From Sandra Green again, a clown. I hope the Big 12 survives him. He is like walking on water right now within the Big 12. It'll be interesting if they don't win in Austin and where we are, as Craig even mentioned at that particular time. But the Big 12 survives him. I think the Big 12 is in a really good spot because of him. But I know, Sandra, that you're a Texas fan, and so that's the way you are. From Devil Frog, I like how Texans fans are indignant the Big 12 didn't roll over and die. Talk about a toxic fan base. This is going back and forth like we do with everything else eventually. My whole point was, were you surprised he said it? And yes, the reaction of what he said, if you're not a Texas fan, you love it. I wonder if Oklahoma fans love it.
No, they don't. Very clearly on their responses, they're siding with Texas fans because they're in the exact same position. There's no difference. If he's rooting for Texas to lose on their way out, then he's absolutely rooting for Oklahoma State to do the same thing to Oklahoma if he's speaking in Stillwater. I mean, that's the thing. He was in Lubbock talking to Lubbock and talking to Texas Tech fans. If he was in Austin, I mean, he wouldn't be because they're leaving. So it's a totally different thing. He's rooting, for the teams that he's going to be involved with to get the last parting shot on the two schools who have decided they're better than the league that they've been in for the longest time. So I get it from that standpoint, but I also, when trying to kind of talk through this earlier, knew that, part of the risk of going out there and kind of cheerleading like that is not the blowback of like Twitter, who cares, but really just now you've planted it in everybody's heads that you're actively rooting against these two teams. And I just don't know if that's the most professional thing that you could have done. And now they lose a game, and if it's anywhere close, what's going to be the automatic? Oh, well, they've got it out for Texas or they've got it out for Oklahoma. And so you further add fuel to that, probably thought that was already in some people's minds anyways, that are sort of paranoid of them getting screwed over because it's the last year. Now you've got the commissioner actively rooting for one of the teams versus one of those teams. And so you've enhanced that a great deal, and especially given how much this is going around today. You've done it on a major level to where non-Big 12 fans are fully aware of him making those comments now.
Here's a fan. I know this is just a fan. I'm going to read it. Should lose his job immediately. You can't be a commissioner of a conference and openly cheer for or against your current members, especially the only one that absolutely owns the conference.
Yeah, I think losing his job is absolutely ridiculous, and I don't think that that's a statement that I agree with in any way, shape, or form. I'm not all on board, as I've made very clear now over these last few minutes, with necessarily the message itself or him doing that. I see all sides of it, but in no side do I see a guy losing his job for those comments.
No, he won't. Absolutely not. That's silly.
Nor should he. But I don't think he probably should have said it, and I think that we'll probably agree with that after about another 24 hours of this. He'll probably wish, if he doesn't already, like, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
I'm sure he'll
maybe
have to say something in a statement.
But, the losing the job part, I think that's way overkill.
I mean, first of all, 12 of the 14 teams in the conference love him to death.
Yeah, I mean, who's going to fire him? The two teams leaving? They can't do anything about it. So
that's an overreaction. Yeah. All right, so thank you for all the responses. Rudy Faber saying, who said that? It was Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner today in Lubbock at a kickoff luncheon, which everybody has at some point. Waco's is, I think, Santana Dotson is their guest speaker.
Well, if anything, it's going to be, it was already going to be a highly interesting year. This is just, there's already a huge fire building just because of the competition and because of the number of teams that feel great about this upcoming year. Just the new teams rolling in, the new teams a year from now that'll be rolling in. There's already so much. One thing you can say is he's made the Big 12, semi-relevant, whereas they otherwise wouldn't be. This is the story of the day now all of a sudden in many, or at least of the afternoon. And there's talk about it and there's attention being paid. So I guess if your goal and so much of social media appears to be just look at me, he's got eyes on the Big 12, I guess is the point that I'm getting on, for better or worse. And, more people that maybe are amped up to see Texas and Oklahoma on their way out and how they do it, particularly in Big 12 play.
Are you sure that the game is a Black Friday or is it on Thanksgiving Day? Because somebody mentioned that there's a game involving Oklahoma and maybe TCU on Black Friday, and I always thought there was one game.
No, there's multiple games on Black Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, we're going to hear from Chad Brendel, covers Cincinnati, check in with the Bearcats. We're trying to check off all 14 programs. We also had Roger Wallace, who covers UT and is their color analyst for football game broadcast on the UT Radio Network. And this is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Our good friend Chad Brendel, BearcatJournal.com, joins us. Just 1 second. We had some of you wanting to try to clarify the Thanksgiving weekend schedule in the Big 12 because of what we've been discussing with Brett Yormark, and we'll get Chad's opinion on that too. Craig?
Yeah, there's only one Thanksgiving college football game this year. It's the Egg Bowl. It's Ole Miss and Mississippi State in Starkville on Thanksgiving night. But as we reiterated with Texas Tech and Texas, that's a Black Friday game, and there's a loaded Black Friday slate of games. Iowa, Nebraska. You've got TCU, Oklahoma in Norman. Texas Tech and Texas will be a 7:30 kickoff that night in Austin. Oregon State, Oregon, Civil War, last of the Pac-12 will start an hour later. That'll be the late kickoff on Fox. Missouri, Arkansas. Penn State, Michigan State. Those are all Black Friday games. So that's going to be like 10-plus games on that day, and 2 huge ones in the Big 12, and now one that's got a bit more fire brewing with Texas Tech and Texas, thanks to the commissioner.
All right, we're joined by Chad Brendel, BearcatJournal.com. Chad, I don't know, it's all over the place. Brett Yormark's in Lubbock. He said he hopes Joey McGuire takes care of the business like he did against Texas in Lubbock and Austin. Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and all hell's breaking loose. People's opinions are going all over the place. As an incoming Big 12 team, how do you feel about that or program?
I'm just glad that Cincinnati's not going to take their what seemed like annual trip to East Carolina for Friday night, Black Friday. So I don't like they can, you guys fight about whatever you guys fight about. We'll just be happy that we don't have to go to Greenville.
It's a good way of looking at it.
It's a great way to look at it. What are your thoughts about Yormark? And, of course, Bowlesby's the one that added the 4 immediately. And then we've seen recently, since the last time we spoke with you, 4 others coming from the Pac-12. Your thoughts about all of that?
I don't think we've ever seen a commissioner like him. I mean, he is direct. He seems to be able to get the job done on what he sets his sights on. He's confident. Like normally commissioners are kind of, talk out of both sides of their mouth, and they're trying to keep everybody happy and keep the peace. I love having a guy that mixes things up. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm not afraid to mix things up. So I kind of like his style.
Chad, with the season now looming here, what are your thoughts on Emory Jones as starting quarterback? And do you see improvement at that position this year versus what Ben Bryant did? What's just sort of the expectation you have now for QB and Emory Jones in particular?
Well, clearly it's a lot different. Ben was a pocket guy in a pretty straightforward, pro-style offense. This is more read option, zone option. You get the quarterback out, out of the pocket a lot more. Let the quarterback run, more like Desmond Ridder was kind of asked to do. So it's different. There's been significant improvement from the spring. Some of that is Emory Jones getting better. Some of that is adding some significant talent to the wide receiver room. I know I've talked about this with you guys before, but there's one scholarship wide receiver remaining from last year. And in the spring, it was like, oh, this is going to be a problem. And they've brought in 4 or 5 guys now. When you look at Cincinnati's wide receiver room, you feel like it's 6, 7, maybe even 8 deep with quality guys. And that's made Emory Jones obviously look a lot better. They've settled in at running back with Miles Montgomery and Corey Kiner, kind of being the 2 backs that are going to be featured. So going into camp, I mean, this is a really good Cincinnati defense, and the offense held their own in camp. Now, there weren't really any days where you felt like, the offense dominated, but they didn't get pushed around, which was a fear after they got their butts kicked in the spring. So we've seen significant improvement there. What does that mean on Saturdays? That's yet to be determined.
Chad Brendel with us, Cincinnati Bearcat Journal. So at the beginning when Fickell leaves, it was obviously a shock to the system. Here comes Satterfield. We had a chance to visit with him at Big 12 Media Days. Has anything, the opinion of him changed, or will that not happen until they lose their first game?
Yeah, I think people have gotten a little bit more comfortable with him and his style and the way that he does things. But, yeah, it's going to come down to winning, and they're used to winning quite a bit here. And this, everybody kind of looks at this as a transition year where making a bowl game is kind of seen as being successful. So I think you'll get a little bit of leash this year, but they expect the defense to be really good. So that's going to kind of be a standard that fans aren't going to really budge on, even though they're playing, more talented offensive units than they have the past couple years. And then, hopefully the offense comes together as the season goes along and finds a rhythm and allows them to be playing better football in October and November than they were in August and September.
Preseason polls are what they are. We're going to forget about them as soon as games kick off for the most part. But when you saw Cincinnati voted to finish 13 out of 14, just above West Virginia, what were your initial thoughts on that?
It didn't really – was I going to feel better if they were voted 10th? Not really.
Do you feel like it was accurate? Or is that kind of the same mindset you have, or do you think that they're being a little bit devalued maybe because people don't know them well enough just yet?
Well, that wouldn't have been the case had Fickell stayed. I think it's fair in that you are looking at a team that is replacing 10 of 11 starters on offense. Mm-hmm. And if I was looking at a team for a preseason poll that was replacing that much, I would say that team's probably going to struggle to win games. So I don't think that it's unrealistic. I think what people didn't do was factor in the schedule, because they missed, if you look at Cincinnati's schedule, they missed 4 of the top 5 teams in the preseason poll. The only team that they get out of that top 5 in the preseason poll is Oklahoma at Nippert Stadium, the first conference game of the year. So they don't get Texas, they don't get TCU, they don't get Kansas State. So when you look at that, there is room there for Cincinnati to maybe win some more games than people expect. But I think if you guys were looking at Baylor and they had 10 of 11 new starters, you'd be like,
You're right.
I get it.
Yep, no question about it. How has joining the Big 12, not that Cincinnati hasn't done well in recruiting and has had talent now in the NFL, how has that in any way or kind of on the barometer of what it's helped with recruiting?
I think because of the staff switch and because of the type of, when you come in December and everything, it used to be December was kind of the start of the next recruiting cycle. And it feels like now everybody's got their classes done by June. So those relationships, it's tough to build in that quick of a window. The recruiting has been about the same at, maybe a little bit of an uptick of, where Fickell had it at the top when they were at the top of the American. So they're hanging out right in the middle of the pack, which I think is probably about right, given, that they're dealing with a new coach and a new staff and an entirely new recruiting department. So when you look at all, you factor in all the things, I think it's about where you would expect it to be. But this was also a pretty weird cycle in that all of a sudden Michigan is back in Ohio. If you followed, Midwest recruiting for any period of time, as Ohio State started to dominate Michigan, Michigan couldn't get kids out of Ohio. So they kind of stopped recruiting Ohio. Now that they've beaten Michigan, they're beating Ohio State twice in a row. Jim Harbaugh's like, hey, let's go get some Ohio kids again. And Ohio State and Michigan have pretty much, dominated the top 10 in the state, which is a spot where Ohio State was getting theirs, and then Cincinnati was picking up a pretty good number of the top 10 to 15 kids that didn't go to Ohio State. We didn't see that in this class because Michigan kind of jumped back in. It'll be interesting to see, like, if that trend continues, or if Cincinnati can, as this staff gets comfortable, can kind of regain that spot as like the secondary option for the kids that don't go to Ohio State.
Chad, so you mentioned getting into it with Twitter. I've been known on occasion to do that, not quite as much as lately, but it's interesting, man. When you have opinions, they have opinions, and you run a site, it's a message board, you cover the heck out of it, you do your due diligence. How often do you want to just walk away? How hard is it sometimes just to walk away?
I've gotten better at it as I've gotten older. You guys know I went through a lot of life changes over the past year, and it kind of makes you like you care less about the arguing on Twitter. It doesn't get the motor running like it used to. It's gotten easier to walk away, but sometimes it's fun to just kind of go back and forth, and that's the thing. A lot of people get mad. Like, I'm always generally laughing when that stuff is going on because I find it entertaining. I find it funny. A lot of people take that stuff way too personally. Like, it's sports on the internet. Just relax and take a deep breath.
Great point. Everyone's shaking their head at you for me to know that a little bit.
Shaking in agreement, yes, very much so, yeah.
There's a guy, John McClain, he's a Hall of Fame columnist. He's worked in Houston for years. He went to Baylor. And he has like 150,000 followers, and he has a massive following from when he covered the NFL. He's semi-retired but continues to write. He told me one time, I asked him about how does he respond to anybody who might check him or whatever, and you know what he did, and I should have listened to him along. He said he's never looked at the responses. And I was like, damn, that's smart to do, but I just kind of feel like we should engage with our audience, whoever it might be, but he actually just doesn't respond or look at any of the comments.
I don't have that type of self-control, so I do.
Yeah, neither do I. Neither do I.
I don't have that type of self-control. I've always had kind of a big personality, and I've always liked to talk and debate and argue sports. My dad would take me to Reds games as a little kid, and the people in front of us would be saying stuff that's wrong. And I'd be like, what do you mean that guy's hitting 327 with a 400 on base percentage? Like, what do you mean take the bat out of his hand? And my dad would just look and smile, and these guys would turn and argue with me. And I was like 7. So this has been me my whole life. I couldn't change it if I wanted to, I don't think.
Yeah, it'd be hard. You're right. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate your time. And we'll see you down the road when Baylor and Cincinnati, and even before that, they hook up.
Anytime you need me, I'm always happy to come on. Appreciate you guys.
Chad Brendel, again, Bearcat Journal 247 Sports. Love that guy's attitude. Enjoy watching him and following him on Twitter, and also his thoughts about Cincinnati football.
Yeah, you should listen to his comments on repeat about Twitter and how to take that. I've done better.
I'm like McClain. I don't even look. I hate comments. I have no interest.
It's legitimate? What if it's somebody asking a question to clarify?
They can find somebody else. They can find somebody else. I'm not that dude.
I check in regularly. I'll tell you what, TweetDeck going away unless you subscribe kills me, because that's how I caught up with everything, because I don't go check the notifications every time there is one. I know that probably the moment you get the icon, there's some people that just all right, what is it, follower or mention or whatever, but I just had columns for all that, so I'd look 2 or 3 times a day, and that's how I would catch up. That's why I'd respond 13 hours after somebody asked me something, and I'm going to try to be more mindful of it. I will definitely be more mindful of it during the season, but if you've tried to tweet me during the show, since TweetDeck went away, I don't even look. I need to start doing that again, though. But, yeah, I just think, people use it differently, and some people are all on top of it at all times, and others like us are just oh, yeah, I haven't logged in a while. I need to look, and don't get bothered by anybody saying anything because,
No, I get it.
Check the source on who it is, for one. That could automatically just make you go, whatever, whatever.
There are trolls. Sandra Green was making the comment about how the Big 12 or how Texas is in the heads of a lot of the teams in the Big 12. And I know teams have frozen up against them. I know they have. But at the same time, that is fans talking. And we have a really good representation of UT fans in this chat. I can think of Tim, you, Paxton, among many others, and there's others that have been a part of it. But when there's a comment and someone doesn't agree with it about being in the heads of the Big 12, that's kind of arrogant too. That doesn't mean you're wrong, but that's somewhat a little bit UT arrogant that feeds sometimes the perception. Paxton, Chad sounds like a good dude. He is. He's a great guy, and we've been with him since before the Cincinnati was offered and accepted the opportunity to be a part of the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of understand what you're saying as far as Sandra and Sandra. We appreciate you and Paxton and all the other Texas fans. Don't have any ill will. I mean, there's rivalries and things like that, but if they go undefeated, I wouldn't love that because I'm not a Texas fan, but I'm also not, every week hoping they go 0-12. And I know there's some that are that way or in the middle or what have you. But yeah, I don't like the trash talking that when you trash talk, it's automatic. We're in your head. Like, I don't think that's always the case. I think trash talking is just trash talking. It doesn't mean you're sitting there obsessing over somebody. I don't think we were planning on talking about it much until Brett Yormark brought up what he brought up. And now it's like, well, how could you not talk about it when an active commissioner is talking about one of the teams leaving and how he's rooting for one of the others to beat them? I'm sure there's some of those mind games or real estate, but no, I just think it's an interesting topic, today.
It is. Sometimes people know exactly what they're saying in front of a group, and sometimes they don't. They really, really don't. They sometimes just don't know. Okay, I'm in Norman, and they're not going to hear this in L.A. or Birmingham, but that's silly.
If we're going to give him credit for masterminding, like realignment and things, we're not going to pretend now that he's not smart enough to understand he knew. And how there's cameras there. Like, I mean, he can't be that naive and also be like this mastermind that some people want to proclaim him as. So I think he knew what he was doing. Maybe didn't realize, maybe did, that it was going to go viral. But I think I'll just circle back to my comments from earlier. I don't necessarily love it because I just think that you just painted this target that was unnecessary, that was already kind of there to begin with. But now you've fueled this idea of you're actively, going against teams and hoping that they lose games. So that's made a storyline that I wish didn't exist. Although there are probably some OU and Texas fans that thought that would be the case without hearing any comments from him whatsoever. On the other hand, I do love it that he's so pro Big 12 that he's fighting, so to speak, or rooting on his teams, if you will. But I think ultimately the biggest takeaway I have from it is just simply that he's got people talking. Like I said a little while ago, who's talking about Brett Yormark and the Big 12 and all this the way that they're talking about it right now, where it's one of the hottest topics on college football Twitter, where people who have nothing to do with the league are talking about, was he right? Was he wrong? Was that right? Was that wrong? And so, if all attention's good attention, then he's certainly got some attention on the Big 12 a lot here lately, and especially today.
Yeah, someone responded by, he is the honey badger and doesn't give two blanks.
Very well could be,
a perfect cracker. I asked you, I responded to you on the question you asked while we had chat on the air. I'm an OU fan. When do I need, where do I need to go? What are some ideas about the OU game at Cincinnati? What is a must do? Send me that to the text line, which is 254-339-1122. I will grab it. I will send it to Chad, get a response, and then I'll get back with you on the text line. So thanks for the question. Sorry I did not see that earlier in the time we had him on with the show. All right, we're going to break and come back. There's a couple of more stories. There's no top five with Paul out with the technology stuff he's doing in the last hour. Reggie Bush files a lawsuit against the NCAA. Elite running back at Georgia is out for the year, and the Big 12 has hired a company to monitor or help monitor gambling when it comes to student athletes, and this is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have low testosterone symptoms that crop up. You hear about sex drive, ED. You hear about sleep habits. Also, you're just not as focused. You lose energy. And sometimes it has nothing to do with that, but it can. And so if you're really not sure, Dr. Kent Petty, this is what he will do. Contact him at his website, pettycliniclowt.com. Call or email him. Tell him who you are. Tell him I sent you. And they will set you up to get your blood work. They will take care of the blood work. Then get the results, and Dr. Petty and his staff will look at the results where your testosterone level is where it should be based on your age and even weight, whatever else. and then have an option for you to increase your testosterone levels through Dr. Kent Petty to be the man you want to be, used to be, and need to be. PettyClinicLowT.com.
The future's bright. The time is now. College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com. Samantha Duvall joins us. She's the marketing director who knows all of the specials and also the events coming up. And thank you very much, as always, for your time. So all of these holidays are over. We've hit the meat of, literally, of the summer. And your thoughts about as you hit the month of August and into football season, Samantha?
Football season's right around the corner, so that means it's perfect time for tailgating. The best time to grab our hamburger patties is right now through the end of July. We still have our sale going on with our regular patties and our jalapeno and cheese patties. They're $12 a package, so that's 4 patties to a package. It's perfect for the time for football. Gather all your family around. That way you can grill it up.
Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu and how they age it as well. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
All right, wrapping up today. Back at it again tomorrow. 365 Sports for all of you. No matter what your fan base is, we appreciate the time you spend with us. And, man, can it get very interesting back and forth during a show that may not even be about any topic that we're talking about. Reggie Bush, remember the Johnny Manziel documentary? And I even brought this up because of what was in the documentary. Why should Reggie Bush not have the Heisman Trophy? It was against the rules, yes, but Johnny Manziel has now admitted, not that people didn't know, admitted that he had cash. Lots of it. Handfuls of it. Reggie Bush has filed a defamation lawsuit against the NCAA. The lawsuit based on the NCAA maliciously attacking his character through a completely false and highly offensive statement that was widely reported in the media, substantially, irreparably damaged his reputation. Now, I don't know if this has anything to do with the Heisman Trophy, this attempt to maybe get that put back in. I think it should be. I think this should be an asterisk, just like anybody in the Hall of Fame. But he's going to sue the NCAA.
Yeah, I would like this to be resolved just to not hear about it anymore.
No, that's great.
This has been ongoing now
point.
for years. Yep. And if they want to give him the trophy back, I would be all for that. If they don't, then I'm fine with that as well. But I certainly understand his viewpoint and that of, those who feel like he got robbed and I mean, he won the Heisman. I mean, that's he just doesn't have the hardware, and there is that line in whatever the almanac is, whether there's an asterisk or just a name missing. We all know who the Heisman Trophy winner was, but I get that you want your name in the history books. You want that trophy to show off or have the replica in your mom's house like we've seen with past winners before, like Earl Campbell, for example. But yeah, it's interesting because things are so different now. So by today's rules, what he did way back when would not have been an issue. But then it comes down to, well, he didn't do it when those rules were in place. He did it when it was, not this current state of affairs where, NIL exists and all those types of things. So I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I'm not man, they have to give it back to him or the world's going to fall apart. I think I lean more towards just give him the trophy, but I also don't think that just, now it's legal, so what I did was fine too. I don't think that just explains it away, but I do think it opens the door enough to where, there is some leeway there that in some understanding that, yeah, he won the trophy, give him the trophy back because what happened wasn't all that, big of a deal in the long run or the grand scheme of things.
All
so
right.
I'm kind of just in the middle on that, but lean towards give him the trophy.
Speaking of USC and a Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams, this is from Christy Dosh, Sports Business Miss. Fansville is back for the 6th season, and this year Dr. Pepper has tapped USC quarterback and Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams for the campaign, joined by his mother, Dana Price, and details the trailer is out if you want to look for it on Fanville. So there's that. Not a bad name. Heisman Trophy winner, big-time star. Who knows what happens for USC and Caleb Williams this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's just natural progression, right? I mean, we've seen all the Kyler Murray was in those, and Baker Mayfield was in those, and Bryce Young was in those last year. So that's part of that whole deal. So, yeah, naturally he's going to be the next in line as the new Heisman Trophy winner, and I'm sure that won't be all that we see from him. I'd imagine he's going to be plastered all over all sorts of campaigns and, marketing opportunities this upcoming year. And then we'll have plenty, in a pro career as well. I mean, the guy's a star, and he's got a chance to, make that star even brighter this season with another great run, which I think we all expect him to have another great year. His team, that's, I think, more of a conversation with a lot of different opinions, but I think we're all pretty confident that Caleb Williams is going to be back in New York at the very least, and if not, that itself would be a story as to why.
That would be a huge story. You're right. Also, Virginia Tech named Grant Wells their starting quarterback. The news here locally is Kyron Drones, of course, transferred to Virginia Tech. The former Baylor quarterback, always liked him quite a bit. Never really had a chance to play much, although when he did, it was, it depends on what you saw. But he's at Virginia Tech, and Grant Wells wins that starting quarterback position.
Yeah, great for Grant Wells. Unfortunate for Kyron Drones. When you see a guy transfer somewhere and then still not win the starting job, it's just, I can't imagine the disappointment on his end, but it's just kind of a weird deal. And look, he would have stayed at Baylor, he wouldn't have won the starting job either. So, it's kind of do what you've been doing and just nothing changes, and you just stay, I guess, in a I don't know if I would call it a rut, but you know what I mean. You're just kind of in the same place, or you at least move forward and get some new scenery and hope that that's going to change your fortunes on the field and off. And so, he'll still compete and he'll still probably get an opportunity at some point. So stay ready, Kyron. And I don't know if he's got any health that could play into that or how that battle shook out the way that it did. If he just got straight up beat out, I didn't pay a ton of close attention once he left, but good player with good size, and we'll see what his future holds, but it's just not going to be starting day one, which is got to be a disappointment.
There's no tweet on this, but Branson Robinson, former top-ranked running back of the 2022 class, ran for a little bit last year. Of course, they were loaded. Will miss the rest of the year with a ruptured patella tendon. He is out. Kirby Smart saying it won't affect our run-pass ratio. We have capable backs. He was one of our better backs, but healthy. We think he was kind of coming into his own. Also, Noah Shannon from Iowa suspended for the rest of the year, part of the gambling investigation at Iowa. Of course, Iowa State's been hit with this as well. Defensive tackle because of sports wagering. He is out for the year. And speaking of that, to close it out with this, the Big 12 today and U.S. Integrity announced a partnership providing the conference with monitoring software and tools that will play a pivotal role in preventing student athletes, coaches, and staff from engaging in prohibited sports wagering. We've now seen, of course, what it's done. It hit Iowa State. Most likely, before it's all said and done, there will be others involved too. So that is an interesting relationship and partnership between the Big 12 and U.S. Integrity for Sports Wagering, Monitoring, and Regulatory Compliance Software.
Trying to battle this betting issue as best they can, so that's a step forward. I've already seen, though, plenty of people in the initial responses when that came down of, well, just get yourself a VPN. And I don't know how all that stuff works. I won't pretend to. I don't, bet regularly anyways, much less like if you told me I can't do it, have to find a way to go in and make sure I can still do it. Like, it's not that kind of thing for me, but I know it clearly is for a lot of people. So, it didn't take long to see those suggesting how they could get around that. I mean, is it worth risking your career potentially for a few bets?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess that vice is that strong for some people, like others are for others. But, seeing what's happened in the state of Iowa, I would just be I would stay as far away from sports gambling as I possibly could while I was a college athlete. But there will be those who, risk it and get away with it. And there will be others that will join, those like Jarrell Brock, who are now talking about having, their careers go to the wayside because of their decisions. So, yeah, that's a tricky issue, a complex issue, and one that you can try to deal with, but we're only getting started, I think, scratching the surface of how this is all going to unfold, and Iowa and Iowa State will certainly not be the only ones moving forward that we hear about.
It is different than what happened during COVID, but you could actually be practicing up until Thursday, take those tests, and we know how tight they were, and next thing you know, you have 35 people that can't play in an upcoming weekend. In this case, it's about somebody doing something that's self-inflicted and shouldn't be, and so you don't know when that might happen within your program. Hopefully not much, but I think we know, we're not naive to know, not to know that it probably will be something else that flares up.
I wanted to add something onto the Reggie Bush that I had seen earlier. I hope that they can get, him all squared away. I mean, if you're talking about a lawsuit, that's really the reason it's being brought back up, right, is because of a lawsuit factor. But I did see this from Arash Markazi. Former AD Mike Bone told me he wanted to re-retire Reggie Bush as number 5 at the Coliseum one day. I'm told that will come sooner than expected with new AD Jennifer Cohen. So she's already apparently, made it known that that's something they're going to work on. And I just hope they can do it while in the Pac-12, which puts them on a timer. But Big Ten legend Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back while they're playing Michigan or something in L.A. would just be sort of strange. But I don't know how quickly those things work. But at least the new AD's on board. I think everybody's on board with, for the most part, would give him the Heisman back. But it does look like he's going to go the legal route to try and ensure that happens. So,
Wyvern King, Big 12 officials have said they got a cheap deal on the software because they knew they didn't need to monitor the 2 schools in Utah. Stop. Oh, my God.
Well, and one's already busted in Iowa. I get where you're coming over that. They had been talking about little tweaks like that. I don't know how much of great interest that is to the overall general fandom, but that's certainly one of those nitty-gritty type of details that, especially if you followed closely to the Iowa State and Iowa stories, that's something else to be tracking along with, NIL, realignment, all the various other things. Just throw that into the mix. And again, that's not a story going away anytime soon.
Thanks to Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter, also Levi Caraway and Garrett Ross. Paul back with us again tomorrow. We had to leave early, as we mentioned. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. We really do love your opinion. There is also going to be some cross-checking that goes on, like in a hockey game. So, thank you for all of your support. It'll be a fun season,
folks.
Yeah, and thank God we have games just around the corner. Our sponsors are amazing. We're back at it again tomorrow at 3 Central Time. And don't forget, 365 Sports tonight at, 10:30 on the CW. David Smoak with Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're